Chapter 1304. At the same time, in the Willful Palace, Feng Zue was playing chess with Shi Jin. His face was a bit pale, but his dark-as-ink eyes were bottomless. Reporting to the emperor that Eunuch Li quickly came in with a bit of panic on his face. He looked at Shi Jin and hesitated to speak. Feng Zue took a black piece, and his beautiful eyes sparkled as he said, "There's no harm in speaking." His voice was very cold as 1,000-year-old ice, and every word was filled with absolute majesty. The Empress, she ding-dong. The black piece fell, and his fingers trembled a bit. "Speak." This word was filled with extreme hatred, but there was also a bit of worry. Eunuch Li naturally could hear one of them, and quickly explained, reporting to the emperor, "The Empress is fine." But she moved back to the splendid hall. He was a bit surprised as a look of disbelief flashed in his dark eyes, when, just now, Eunuch Li looked at Shi Jin. After all, the concubine in front of him was the favored person of the emperor. If he didn't avoid talking about the empress who had already lost favor in the eyes of outsiders, it would be hard for him to avoid being in an awkward situation. The emperor isn't going to take a look? Shi Jin's face was very calm. She only slightly raised her brows, but there weren't many changes in her expression. "I'm not going." A faint light flashed through his starry eyes. He placed down a black chess piece and said, "It's not the first time she's moved in. No matter what tricks she's playing this time, I won't have any expectations." The emperor's mouth says that you don't have expectations, but your body is very honest. Shi Jin revealed a faint smile as she slowly put away the black piece that was surrounded. "You've lost." At that moment, everything around him seemed to have stopped. He could only hear the strong beating of his heart, as well as the trace of joy in the depths of his heart. After a while, he gave 2 coughs. "Forget it, I'm going back." Although Feng Zue often came to the Willful Palace, he never stayed here. As for the reason, only he and Shi Jin knew. This concubine sends off the emperor. She gave a bow, and when she looked up, Feng Zue was already out the door. In the next second, she sighed softly and muttered to herself, "Not fated. They are very similar to us." On this night, it seemed that many people were unable to sleep. The next morning, when Eunuch Li came to the splendid hall to give his greetings, Luo Qingshan learned that Feng Zue had decided to hold a 100 flowers competition, letting the thousands of little girls in the palace show themselves, and choosing a few to become concubines. Eunuch Li had casually mentioned this news, but Luo Qingshan knew that this casual was actually intentional. "If your majesty needs anything else, you can tell this servant at any time." Eunuch Li's face was full of smiles. He bowed deeply and said, "His Majesty has ordered that Nyang Nyang is the master of the imperial harem. No matter what happens, we cannot neglect her." Amen. She looked at the mirror and said indifferently, "Is there anything else, father-in-law?" "Yes. His Majesty has also instructed that the 100 flowers competition will be held in a few days. Your Highness doesn't need to go." Eunuch Li was slightly taken aback and felt that it was a little strange. Chapter 1305. Eunuch Li was clearly surprised. Although the Empress in front of him looked the same as before, there was an indescribable difference in her tone. "Empress, please speak." He lowered his head and cupped his hands as he spoke. "I asked the Emperor to call Feng Xingyu back from the Bare North." Ding! As soon as her voice fell, the comb in Xiao Chui's hand fell to the ground and her face turned pale. In the court and the harem, who didn't know that the name Feng Xingyu was a taboo? "Shouldn't say it, can't say it, can't say it." She raised her eyebrows and said with a faint smile in her eyes, "Do you understand? This servant understands. Leave." When Eunuch Li left their line of sight, Xiao Chui kneeled down on the ground and cried out, "Empress, you mustn't do anything stupid." She cried very softly, but her tears fell down drop by drop like a broken string of pearls. Luo Qingshan felt a bit of pain for this 12-year-old girl. After all, she didn't have any relatives, and the previous host was her benefactor. "Relax, it's enough to do something stupid once." She raised her hand and helped her up. Not to mention, that person isn't worth doing something stupid for. Feng Xingyu, whether or not he was a scum, was another matter. However, The oath of eternal love between them had long since vanished into thin air. Since she wanted to protect Feng Sizue's country, she definitely couldn't let Feng Xingyu gather power in the barren north. He had to come back. Ding, affection hasn't changed, but hatred has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is minus 10%. Logically speaking, when she heard the notification from the system, there was a surge of primordial energy in her heart that was slowly rising. Was there a mistake? How could hatred points be added so casually? But this also proved that Eunuch Lee had already brought her words. He should be very angry. Pong. There was the sound of porcelain shattering that filled the royal study. Eunuch Lee was kneeling on the ground as his body kept trembling. Feng Sizue was holding his chest with a pale face as beads of sweat covered his forehead. Someone quickly call the imperial doctor. There's no need. His cold voice slowly sounded, and his pitch-black eyes were bottomless. However, within that flowing light, one could faintly see a thick sense of despair. Your Majesty, you must prioritize the dragon's health. Eunuch Lee kowtowed heavily on the wall, his eyes filled with anxiety. The Empress was too ruthless. She killed her own flesh and blood and ruthlessly crushed the Emperor's heart. Now she was asking the Emperor to let Feng Xingyu return to Long Peace City. Dragon body? He smiled coldly. The haze in his eyes could almost freeze people, but there was an extremely mocking smile on his lips. Your Majesty, reporting to Your Majesty. Another eunuch who was on duty outside the imperial study ran in and looked at the shattered porcelain on the ground. He was so scared that he knelt down and said, Empress Nyang Nyang requests an audience. His eyebrows moved slightly, as if a storm was about to come, causing people's hearts to tremble. Luo Qingshun stood outside the imperial study. Although she had already put on a thick shawl, she was still shivering from the cold. This winter really was cold. She was afraid that the medicine in her hand would turn cold. After all, she had spent 500 exchange points to exchange for this medicine from the system. After a while, the two eunuchs came out at the same time. Eunuch Lee looked at her with a pleading gaze. Empress, the Emperor really... AI, please don't hurt him anymore. Chapter 1306. She took a deep breath and her eyes trembled. She didn't say anything as she slowly walked into the royal study. There were some things that if one didn't take the first step, they would be trapped in an endless loop for the rest of their lives, never being able to walk out. There was a faint musk smell in the royal study that was very light, but very comfortable. Feng Sizue had his back to her as he stood in front of the eastern wall. Looking at the picture on the wall, the person in the picture was blindfolded and there were only a few strokes, so one couldn't see their appearance. There was a table beside the picture and there was a goo on it. The goo was the size of a bowl, and there was a faint sinister feeling to it. Luo Qingshun looked up and slowly walked in his direction. She stopped 3 meters away and gave a bow. This concubine greets the Emperor. This concubine? Feng Sizue gave a cold laugh, and his eyes made her heart skip a beat. His face was a bit pale, but his sharp features were still very good. It was like a face carved from jade, but there was a coldness that kept people 1,000 miles away. Didn't you call yourself Qing or it before? His lips curled even wider, and there was a faint bloodshot look in his bottomless eyes. Without knowing why, there was a strange pressure when she walked into this room. This pressure didn't seem to come from Feng Sizue, but rather something else. The feeling that Feng Sizue gave her was an extremely terrifying feeling. I heard Eunuch Lee say that the Emperor has been having nightmares recently. She bit her lip and walked forward step by step, placing the medicine in her hand in front of him. Drink this, it's good for your body. She did this because she didn't know what kind of poison Feng Sizue was suffering from and where to find the antidote. She only knew that his illness couldn't be delayed. In the memories of the previous host, even if that dagger hadn't pierced his heart, he wouldn't have been able to live for long. The system's medicine could at least make his body the same as a normal person, so he wouldn't be that weak. As for the poison, what did the system say? The one who tied the bell should untie it. The system spread its non-existent hands, indicating that the host's memories were very bad. It's good for the body. Feng Zhe suddenly took a step forward and stopped a few centimeters away from her. A pair of sword-like eyes filled with hatred stared at her and said, "Luo Qingshun, what other tricks do you want to play? What else did she want him to do?" The pain she had brought him was enough to tear his heart apart for the rest of his life. What else did she want from him? If she really poisoned him to death, how was she going to escape? Ha! What a joke. Even when faced with a 99% chance that it was poison, he still couldn't bear for her to die, without knowing why. Even if she knew that Feng Zizue's heart was filled with hatred, her chest couldn't help suffocating. It was really a little uncomfortable. In the next second, she pursed her lips slightly and raised her eyebrows slightly. A pair of clear eyes looked directly into his eyes and said, "What tricks this concubine wants to play, won't your majesty know once you drink it? We really can't think of anything else that you want other than my death." As soon as he finished speaking, he seemed to have come to a sudden realization and curled his lips in self-mockery. "Oh, this one almost forgot. You still want Feng Xingyu." Actually, when he said this, she suddenly felt a bit aggrieved, a strange aggrieved feeling. Chapter 1307. Feng Zhe raised a brow as his eyes filled with a deathly despair. In an instant, he raised his right hand and firmly grabbed her arm. With a cabinet sound, he slammed the painting on the eastern wall. "You want me to drink it, right?" His lips slightly pursed as his right hand tightened on her arm, like he was going to crush her at any moment. "That's right." Her eyebrows trembled slightly, and a hint of determination flashed through her eyes that were as bright as stars. No matter how hard this step was, she had to move forward, because she knew that the man in front of her had a heart that was full of holes. Uh-huh. In the next second, his thin lips curved into a bitter smile. His left hand wrapped around her waist, and his right hand instantly took the medicine from her left hand. Without another word, he drank it all. She was stunned at that moment. Other than the sound of Feng Zhe drinking the medicine, there was only the sound of her wildly beating heart. Little did she know that before she could fully react, his left hand had already moved up from her waist, forcefully grabbing the back of her head. A pair of eyes that were as dark as the abyss stared intently at her lips. The next second, he kissed her without any warning. When their lips met, there was as cold as ice voice that came from beside her ear. "Let's go to hell together." At that moment, Luo Qingshun felt a strong medicinal taste fill her mouth. He used an ice-cold kiss to send the last mouthful of medicine into her mouth. Since it was poison, since she wanted to die to him, then let's go to hell together, all right? But when he sent the medicine in her mouth, he swallowed the medicine that was in his mouth. It really was funny. He was actually afraid that she would be hurt, afraid that she would die. She was suddenly startled and nervously swallowed the medicine. She blinked in a daze as she looked at him with a harmless look. At the same time, there was a trace of surprise that flashed in his eyes. This feeling was very strange. It was like time and space had been frozen. It surpassed all love and hate. There was only one thought in his mind at that moment. Can I kiss her again? Can I completely possess her? Ding! Hatred has decreased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 0%. It's a bit sweet. To be honest, the medicine the system gave was so good. Her eyebrows moved, her beautiful eyes were crystal clear, and a faint blush appeared on her snow-white cheeks. Feng Zizue's eyes trembled, and he was a bit entranced. Luo Qingshun really looked good at this moment. He wouldn't get tired of looking at her. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 10%. Two crisp mechanical sounds of the system brought her back to her senses from her blushing face and her racing heart. When she wanted to say something, Feng Zizue shouted like crazy, "Quickly, someone, summon the Imperial Doctor." Summon the Imperial Doctor for what? Luo Qingshun raised her right as she pursed her lips with a bit of doubt. But she didn't know that Feng Zizue would take her hand and take her by the waist. When he picked her, there was a bit confused. Why do I suddenly feel like I'm not that weak anymore? He knit his brows and shook his head. Without thinking, he directly put Luo Qingshun on the couch as a bit of worry flashed in his deep eyes. Chapter 1308. She looked up slightly and felt that there was an indescribable obsession in Feng-Si Zue's deep eyes. That obsession, there was a strong possessiveness and an indescribable gentleness. What do you mean? This minister greets the emperor. Before Luo Qingshun could finish, the imperial doctors came in and kneeled down. This minister, stop wasting time. Feng-Si Zue looked up and said with the aura of an emperor, quickly take a look at her. Look at what? Luo Qingshun wanted to struggle, but his slender hand tightly grabbed her wrist. The imperial doctor quickly came forward to take her pulse and said after a few seconds, the emperor's pulse is stable. There isn't anything wrong with her. Keep her warm and avoid catching a cold. Feng-Si Zue narrowed his eyes as a confused look appeared on his face. He thought that there was a 99% chance that she would give him the poison, but he never thought that she wouldn't poison him. Then what did this woman want to do? Was she doing this for him? Impossible. A person who would take revenge on him for half a year and kill her own child. How could she suddenly do this for him? He didn't believe it. Got it, you can leave. Feng-Si Zue looked at Eunuch Li with his hands behind his back. Clean it up. Eunuch Li immediately understood and gave a bow. Yes. The shattered porcelain and the bowl of medicine were taken away, and there were only the two of them left in the imperial study. The meaning you gave Eunuch Li was. After a while, he coldly looked at her, and his lips curled into a taunting smile. You want Feng Xingyu to return to Long Peace City? She could clearly feel that when Feng-Si Zue said his final words, his tone was incomparably cold. It was like the words Feng Xingyu was a limit to him. It was the limit of his patience. Yes. She took a deep breath as a faint sparkle appeared in her eyes. The sooner the better. After all, the longer Feng Xingyu stayed in the barren north, the more likely he was to establish his own power. If it happened again, she couldn't take any risks. This kind of power must be completely nipped in the bud from the very beginning. Ha. He gave a cold laugh and slightly bent down. His eyes were at the same level as her body emitted a cold aura as he said, You don't even want to lie to this one. Then everything made sense. She gave him the medicine in exchange for Feng Xingyu's return to Long Peace City. Luo Qingshun, oh Luo Qingshun, why is your love so stubborn? What was so good about Feng Xingyu that was worth you doing this for? All right, we agree. He nodded slightly. His inky black eyes were filled with despair. His brows furrowed, but the corners of his mouth raised into a beautiful arc. He looked at her and said, But the Empress has to agree to one condition. She was slightly stunned. She clenched her fists and tried to calm her breathing. She looked at him and asked, What condition? In a few days, it will be the 100 flowers bloom. His cold eyes narrowed, and his beautiful eyes moved away, no longer looking at her. Then he said, The Empress' eyes have always been good. Help this one choose a few concubines for the 100 flowers bloom. Me? She was surprised, feeling a bit uncomfortable in her heart. But for Feng Xingyu to come back, she had to do this. After all, she only had a 10% completion rate, so Feng-Si Zue wouldn't believe her no matter what she said. Chapter 1309. All right. Luo Qingshun's voice was a bit trembling, but her clear eyes were filled with determination. But when she saw his extremely cold smile, she still felt her breath catch in her throat. That smile, that desolate smile. He slowly raised his hand, and his slender fingers moved across her face. Do you see the goo over there? She was suddenly startled, and that sinister feeling instantly reached the bottom of her heart. The goo beside the painting on the eastern wall had given her a very oppressive feeling when she came in, but when Feng-Si Zue mentioned it again, her back couldn't help being covered in cold sweat. What? What is it? She pursed her lips as her eyes trembled. Feng-Si Zue grabbed her wrist and pulled her in front of the goo. There was a faint smell of blood that slowly came over, and she swallowed a mouthful of saliva, unconsciously taking a step back. But Feng-Si Zue didn't give her this chance. He opened the lid of the goo and looked at her with a pair of sharp eyes filled with despair. This is the child you personally killed. There was a strong smell of blood that came over, and she took a step back as her heart wildly beat. This feeling didn't come from her. A large part of it came from the previous host. That was the child she had personally sent to hell. There was blood inside, It was the blood left behind by the previous host when she drank the abortion medicine half a month ago. She closed her eyes and her lashes trembled. The stench of blood made her stomach churn, and a sense of guilt violently pounded on her heart. She held her chest and took deep breaths as her face turned pale. At this moment, Feng Zue, who was standing in front of the goo, suddenly trembled. He thought that when she saw the blood, she would just coldly turn around. But he never thought that she would have such a large reaction. This one never thought that you would have this kind of reaction. He carefully closed the lid of the goo and waved his right hand. This one will have Feng Xing you return to Long Pi City tomorrow. But please remember, even if this one goes to hell with you, I won't let you be with him. As soon as his voice fell, he left the royal study without looking back, leaving her sitting on the ground alone. She looked up at the goo not far away, and her heart suddenly tightened. The previous host really was a person without a heart. Her heart ached for Feng Zue the most. Just how paranoid was this man that he would leave the previous host alive after doing such a cruel thing, letting her live a carefree life and protecting her. Even though he was certain that it was poison in his heart, he still fed her the last bit. When she really swallowed it, he nervously called the imperial doctor, afraid that she would be poisoned. At that moment, did he ever think about it? If there really was a problem with the medicine, he would be the first to die. After returning to the splendid hall, she didn't sleep. The next morning, Feng Zue summoned Feng Xingyu back to the palace as he wished. The ministers knelt and kowtowed one after another, begging him to withdraw his order, but he remained indifferent. He was very clear that he hated her very much. But even so, he Zue her. The moon tonight was very beautiful. Shi Jin personally made pastries in the Rui Palace and worshipped the memorial tablet in her room. It was the memorial tablet of Ningyuan Army General Zhong. Chapter 1310. Shi Jin and Zhong Zhe were two friends he met when he was still the crown prince. The three of them often drank together, but they never asked about each other's identities. Only when Shi Jin and Zhong Zhe promised themselves to each other did Feng Zue learn that Zhong Zhe's father was the great general Zhonghua, an elder of 3 dynasties, a great general who had been on the battlefield for a long time. Zhong Zhe really wanted to go to the battlefield, but his father wasn't willing, so he could only wander around Long Pi City. But if he wanted to marry Shi Jin, who shook the capital, Zhong Zhe felt that he wasn't worthy of her. After all, he was different from his father. He wanted to rely on his own ability to marry Shi Jin in a dignified manner. When Feng Zue learned of this, he recommended Zhong Zhe as the crown prince. In a battle with the southern barbarians, he won and was given the title of Far Peace General. Everything had gone so smoothly, and everything had come so suddenly that he was caught off guard. On the day of Shi Jin and Zhong Zhe's wedding, the Zhong family was reported for treason by someone with conclusive evidence. The emperor gave a decree that their entire family would be executed. Zhong Zhe went to see Feng Zue that night, begging him to save Shi Jin. Although Feng Zue was the crown prince, he couldn't do anything no matter what he did. Everything that was related to treason, whether it was true or not, it was a tumor in the eyes of the emperor. He couldn't save a single person of the Zhong family. He could only show that he liked Shi Jin and was willing to take her as a concubine. Shi Jin didn't agree at first, but Zhong Zhe insisted that she had to live. That way she could use the rest of her life to prove the Zhong family's innocence. Although the emperor promised Feng Zue to spare Shi Jin's life, he forbade her from entering the Eastern Palace and only let her live in a place far away from Long Pi City. Only after Feng Zue ascended the throne did he let her enter the palace and take her as a concubine. Actually, Shi Jin wasn't willing to enter the palace at first, but Feng Zue considered her safety and his promise to Zhong Zhe, so he used a method to make her enter the palace. Why did the emperor want to drink with his concubine tonight? She drank a cup, and there was a blush on her white as snow face. His eyebrows twitched as a bitter smile appeared on his face. What exactly is a woman's mind? Love. After a while, she slowly looked up and took a deep look at Feng Zue with complicated emotions in her eyes. Huh? He sneered and drank one cup after another. He sighed and said, "In order to hurt me, she didn't hesitate to kill my own flesh and blood. Was it for love?" "Love?" Feng Xingyu. Actually, Shi Jin drank 2 cups of wine, and her right hand held her cheek. There was a faint sparkle in her eyes as she looked at him and said, "I really envy her." There was a crazy and paranoid emperor who gave her all the love and hate in his life. Shouldn't it be? Was it worth being envious? Jealous? Feng Sizue's eyes turned cold as he released a chill. His lips curled into a cold curve as he said, "When Feng Xingyu returns to Long Peace City, this one will let you know how laughable your words are." She was slightly stunned. The cold emperor in front of her probably misunderstood her meaning. She wasn't envious that Luo Qingxin's husband Feng Xingyu had returned to Long Peace City, but rather that there was such an outstanding man who loved her deeply. If he loved her, he would know the marrow of his bones. If he hated her, he would dig out his heart. Chapter 13:11. Let him come in. Feng Sizhe knit his brows and his heart was beating a bit faster. It had to be said, after Luo Qingxian gave him that medicine, he felt that his body was much better compared to before. He didn't have those strange nightmares at night. It was like the poison in his body had been cured. Therefore, he had Eunuchly check the residue on the bowl to see what medicine it was. Eunuchly came in and gave a bow. "Greetings to the emperor, greetings to concubine Shi." Get to the main point. Feng Sizue looked up with a faint sparkle in his dark eyes. "Reporting to the emperor, the medicine you had this servant check. How is it? Everyone in the Imperial Academy of Medicine has mentioned the name of the medicine, as if this medicine does not exist in this world. How is that possible?" Feng Sizue's eyes opened slightly, clearly very surprised by this result. Shi Jin narrowed her eyes and said from the side, "Could it be some herb from the barren north or the barbarian south?" "Impossible." Eunuchly shook his head. The Imperial Hospital's older generation has a deep understanding of herbs. The medicine the empress drank that day surpassed the range of herbs. Got it. Feng Sizue waved his hand. "You can leave." "Yes, this servant will leave now." After Eunuchly left, Shi Jin revealed a faint smile as she looked at Feng Sizue. Shi Jin always wanted to know, what does the emperor like about the empress? This one doesn't like her. You love her, you can lie to yourself, but you can't lie to everyone. A faint emotion flashed in Shi Jin's eyes as she said with a bitter smile, "I just don't understand. For someone of the emperor's status, he can have any kind of girl, so why does he only love the empress? This kind of obsession. How many people in this world could be like Feng Sizue, crazy in love and crazy in hate?" "You don't need to ask this one this question." He slowly stood up and crossed his hands as he said with his back to her, "You have many choices, so why do you only love Zhongzhe and can't forget him?" Without waiting for her reply, he put on his cloak and walked towards the door. It was probably because he was in a rush that he didn't hear Shi Jin's final words, "I indeed can't forget him, but that doesn't mean I won't fall in love with someone else." Cold tears slowly fell from her eyes. She looked at his departing figure and suddenly felt a pang of sadness. Splendid Hall. Over the past few days, Luo Qingxin had gone to the Imperial Hospital to look for information on Feng Sizue's poisoning. This kind of medical book related to the emperor wouldn't be lent out. Therefore, Luo Qingxin stole it using space-time freeze. She had to admit that the first time she used her ability to freeze space and time, she almost fainted. After returning to the splendid hall, he slept for 16 hours before gradually regaining his senses. Nyang Yang has been watching for a long time. "Do you want to rest?" Xiao Chui made a pot of Biluacun tea for her and said, Nyang Yang's eyes are bloodshot. Luo Qingxian held her cheek with her left hand as she tapped the table with her right hand. She muttered in a somewhat annoyed voice, "What is the antidote?" According to the medical books, the one that bit Feng Sizue was called the bloodbone snake, a rare snake that was a combination of medicine and poison. To put it simply, this was a snake that had eaten many tonics and sucked a large amount of blood. Chapter 13:12. In other words, as long as a person ate the gallbladder of this snake, they would be immune to all kinds of poisons. But if a person was accidentally bitten by this snake, if they weren't treated in time, they would bleed to death from their 7 orifices. However, if he was treated, he would be able to preserve his life. But it was just a slow death. When the blood of the blood-bone snake slowly seeped into their organs, even the most effective medicine couldn't extend their lives. No! Xiao Chui wanted to say something, but she was scared by the person who patted her shoulder. Feng Zue shook his head and had her leave first. Xiao Chui immediately understood. She bowed and hurriedly retreated. Luo Qingshun didn't know that the one standing behind her wasn't Xiao Chui, but rather Feng Zue. So she was looking at the medical books while muttering to herself in an annoyed manner. Why don't you think this poison can be cured? What broken snake? Father can slap it to death in the dirt. Ding! Affection has increased by 10, currently 70. Hatred has decreased by 10, currently 40. Mission completion rate is now 30%. Her body suddenly froze as her eyes wildly jumped. She cleared her throat and asked, Xiao Chui, our family. No. Did someone from our palace come? That's right. A voice as cool as water rang out, causing her to almost fall to the ground. She suddenly turned around and patted her little heart. Emperor, you don't make a sound when you walk. Io. If it wasn't for the fact that she had experienced so many worlds and her heart was very strong, she would have already been scared to death. All right? It wasn't my voice. His eyes narrowed as they flickered. He sat down in front of her with a confused look and looked at her. You were too entranced. Tonight, she should have been eating dinner with Shi Jin. After all, today was the anniversary of Zhongzhi's death. He wouldn't have left her alone in the Rui Palace in the past. But in the Rui Palace, uniquely said that the medicine she gave him surpassed what everyone in the Imperial Hospital knew. So he wildly wanted to see her. An inexplicable warmth flowed from his heart. He had experienced this feeling once half a year ago. Unfortunately, half a year was just an illusion, and it was like a dream, but he was willing to stay in that dream forever, even if he never woke up. Luo Qingshun awkwardly touched her ears. She wanted to put away all the medical books, but she knew it was too late. After all, Feng Zue's beautiful eyes had been looking at those medical books for a long time, until he slowly raised his eyes and looked straight at her with a pair of cold eyes. He coldly said, What exactly do you want to do? In order to brew a bowl of medicinal soup that no one knew about, his mental state improved greatly. Now, someone was secretly flipping through his medical books. What was the reason? Did she really want to save his life? No. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. He closed his eyes slightly as he continued to talk to himself in his mind. Feng Zue, Feng Zue, have you forgotten how badly you've been hurt? That heart-piercing pain, have you recovered yet? Or will you only be willing to believe that she didn't do this to save you, but rather to kill you? Chapter 13:13. Why does the Emperor keep asking this question? Luo Qingshun patted his sleeve and had him sit down as she said, Isn't this concubine studying your condition? You calling yourself this concubine, this one really isn't used to it. Although these two words sounded awkward, the moment she patted his sleeves, he could clearly feel his breathing stop. She seemed to be really different. Oh, Luo Qingshun looked down. He couldn't see her expression, but it seemed a bit disappointed. When he wanted to sit down to see her expression, she casually said, Then just use I in the future. I also feel awkward anyway. He was a bit surprised, although he was a bit speechless by her answer. But it had to be said. She was a bit cute. Ding! Hatred has decreased by 10, currently 30. Mission completion rate is now 40%. It had to be said. She was a bit confused by the system's notification. It seemed like Feng Zue really felt that her calling herself this concubine was a fake feeling. You said that you were studying this one's condition? Feng Zue looked down and seriously said to her, If you want me to die, there's no need to be this indirect. Who wants you? She didn't look up, but there was a bit of anger in her voice. After all, she wasn't the same person who had nothing at this moment. After all, she had a 40% completion rate, so it wasn't a big deal to be a bit arrogant. Before he could say anything, she continued, I don't want to be a widow. Feng Zue narrowed his eyes with a bit of confusion. He really couldn't understand her at all. She was wearing a bamboo-colored pleated dress with a lily bun on her head. She pursed her lips slightly when she said widow, making people feel that she was a bit cute. Half a month ago, she did something so decisive to him and his child. Half a month ago, she gave him a bowl of medicine in exchange for a condition, hoping that Fengxing would come back to Long Peace City. Now she was worried about his condition. Did she want him to die, or did she want him to live? Cuckoo. Seeing her pure appearance, Fengxi Zue felt like he was a bit entranced. He cleared his throat and said, Fengxing, you will arrive in Long Peace City tomorrow. Really? Luo Qingshan suddenly raised her eyes and said with an unconcealable smile, Great, you're finally back. As soon as she finished speaking, she could feel a chill radiating from her surroundings, as if she had encountered a ghost in the middle of July. She slowly raised her eyes and blinked her eyes. The moment she saw his ink-black eyes, she knew the source of this cold air. The next second, she immediately explained, That's not what I meant. Her joy came from the fact that it was impossible for Fengxing Yu to gather power in the barren north. It wasn't like he thought. We know what you mean. He said each word through gritted teeth. His voice was extremely cold. As expected, she did all this to bring Fengxing Yu back. She was afraid that he would hurt her husband. This is so funny, his heart. Really hurt. Couldn't she pity him, at least put the joy in her heart, and not show it like this? Chapter 13-14. Stop. Luo Qingshan suddenly reached out and softly covered his eyes. She took a deep breath and seriously said word for word, My goal in having Fengxing Yu come back to Long Peace City is different from what you imagined. It's fine if you believe it or not, but can you not reveal such hurt eyes? Be reasonable. She didn't hit him or scold him. The kind of deep sadness in his eyes made her heart tighten and hurt a bit. After a while, her hand was still over his eyes, and he didn't say a single word. It wasn't until the system's notification rang out again that she finally let out a sigh of relief, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. Ding! Hatred has decreased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 50%. She slowly put her hand down and looked at him, who still had his eyes closed. His long eyelashes fluttered, looking very good. Does the Emperor want to drink tea? Luo Qingshan tidied up the medical books on the table while calling Xiao Chui. I only have by Luo Chun here. He slowly opened his eyes, and his mind was blank. There was still the warmth of her hand in his eyes, making him unwilling to part with it. This feeling was very special. It was completely different from how she approached him a year ago. It was like a clear stream that entered his chaotic heart without any warning. Xiao Chui, make a pot by Luo Chun and bring up the chess pieces. She put the medical books on the side and looked at him. I've heard eunuchly say that the Emperor often plays chess with concubine Shi, so you must be good at chess? Although Shi Jin might not be an enemy or a friend in her heart, she always felt that this kind of friend was the most terrifying. After all women were narrow-minded creatures. Fengxi Zue clearly didn't love her, but he placed her in the harem and gave her a unique concubine. So there had to be a reason. Eunuchly has told you quite a bit. His deep eyes couldn't help falling on her slightly pursed lips, and his heart couldn't help skipping a beat. Did she care? Why could he feel from her tone that she cared about him playing chess with Shi Jin? He hasn't told you much. Luo Qingshan picked up a white piece and placed it on the chessboard. I'm also good at playing chess. If the Emperor is bored, you can come and find me. As soon as he finished speaking, the black chess piece in his hand fell to the ground with a thud. He suddenly raised his eyes, and a faint mist flashed through his ink-black eyes. His fingertips were actually trembling uncontrollably. What was she talking about? Did she mean that he was already able to play chess with her? Could it be that she wasn't thinking about how to escape from the palace after Fengxing Yu came back, escaping his imprisonment and running away with the person she loved? Fengxi Zue, don't be silly. She was just trying to make you lower your guard. Have you forgotten the saying of giving a sweet date and then stabbing it with a knife? Cool. After that, he picked up another black piece and placed it on the board. When Fengxing Yu comes back, where do you want this one to place him? In the palace? Are you stupid? Luo Qingshan blurted out, but she immediately realized that she had said something wrong. Speaking too fast in front of the Emperor was definitely a taboo. It was no wonder history said that one had to be careful in the palace, otherwise one's head and body would be two different things, Eh, no. She immediately changed her words. My meaning is, it's, the word stupid is a compliment in certain situations. Chapter 13:15. It had to be said, she had the urge to slap herself at this moment. It was probably because Feng Si Zue's words were too infuriating. Every time he said something that went against what she thought, she could barely suppress her anger after hearing one or two sentences. Once she heard too much of it, she couldn't help but feel that she could no longer suppress the primal energy in her body, and her rage points were rising rapidly. So much so that she didn't know what to say. She really couldn't be blamed. Since this one is stupid, it isn't bad if you give this one a suggestion. He softly put down his piece, and a faint smile appeared on his ice-cold face. It was probably because there wasn't a trace of anger in his heart when he heard the words, "Are you stupid?" Rather, he was filled with joy. After all, she didn't let Feng Xingyu return to the palace, and didn't say anything to please him to make him let down his guard. Right now, he was asking this question because he really wanted to know the answer to his question. What kind of position did Feng Xingyu have in her heart right now? Although he knew that there was a 99% chance that her answer would leave him covered in wounds. But, so what? He only had one heart. She could see it hurt. Woo. However, Luo Qingchen wasn't focused on Feng Si Zue's question. Rather, she was focused on the game in front of her. It had to be said, Feng Si Zue really played very well. She felt that this game had just begun, and it was already about to end. The black pieces surrounded the white pieces, not leaving a single gap. The previous host chess skills were too bad. Host, this is your own skill. It isn't related to the previous host. If the host inherited the skills of the previous host, the host will clearly point it out before the mission. The system was very helpless towards the host's shirking of responsibility. It had to bravely stand up and speak up for the previous host. MMP. Luo Qingchen cursed the system in her heart as she grimaced. What? Did this one's question trouble you? Feng Si Zue's voice was a bit disappointed. The words Feng Xingyu would be the weakness of this girl forever. What trouble? Luo Qingchen held the white piece in her hand and hesitated for a while. In the end, she said in an angry voice, "It's very simple for the emperor to settle Feng Xingyu. He can't live too close to Long Peace City and not too far away." His eyebrows twitched slightly as he looked at the chess game that he had already won. He placed the black chess piece in a position where he was seeking his own death. In an instant, the entire chess game was reversed. The white chess piece, which was originally on the verge of death, actually showed signs of winning. She pursed her lips slightly, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. She raised her eyes and said, "Is your Majesty satisfied with my answer?" After all, she only had Feng Xingyu to return a long Feng Si Zue was to Feng Si's to Feng's do anything he wanted to do. Of course, he didn't get too close to the royal palace. After all, although he had been in the northern wilderness for a year and a half, there were still some forces in the imperial court. Although they were weak, as the saying goes, a wildfire can't burn them. They will grow again with the spring breeze. Since he had already done this much, she felt that it was impossible for Feng Xingyu to make a comeback. Feng Si Zue heard this and didn't reply. He just took a deep look at her, and after a while he said, "The Emperor's chess skills really aren't that good." Chapter 13:16. The winner is the king. At that moment, Luo Qingchen didn't feel that she was being thick-skinned. Rather, she felt that since he gave her favor, she would accept it. Wasn't the most beautiful scene in this world? You're messing around, and he's smiling, warming you for the rest of your life? It's an unfair win. He put down the black piece and carefully put away the other pieces. He took a sip of tea and said, "It's getting late. This one is going back." Luo Qingchen looked up with a faint smile. "See you tomorrow." His back stiffened, and there was an unfathomable glow in the dark night. The word "see you tomorrow" actually tugged at his heartstrings. She didn't know if it was because the green tea was too warm, or if it was the first time she felt that the hatred between her and Feng Size wasn't as sharp as a blade. That night, she slept very peacefully. But in the morning, she had a dream. The scene in the dream was very blurry. There was a dense forest. She seemed to be chased by something, and when she thought she was dead, There was a youth in a moon-white robe who pushed her. Ah! Luo Qingshun suddenly woke up, and the sweat on her forehead fell down drop by drop. She let out a sigh of relief and touched her back, feeling a chill. Empress! Xiao Chui heard her call and quickly came in. Empress, what's wrong? Why are you sweating so much? This servant will call an imperial doctor for you. No need. She raised her right hand and rubbed her temples. It was just a dream. To be precise, it was a nightmare, but it felt like this dream was a bit like a lost memory of the past. But Empress' face is very bad. Xiao Chui brought a basin of hot water and quickly helped her wipe her face. This servant will make a cup of ginseng tea for the Empress. No need. Luo Qingshun took the towel to wipe her face. Help me prepare a set of low-key clothes. I'm going back to the Luo Manor. It had to be said, Xiao Chui's eyes weren't bad. She found an alizarin blue satin outer robe with a jasper flower hairpin that looked very elegant. Because the Luo family had a certain amount of power in court, it wasn't hard for Luo Qingshun to leave the palace as the country's empress. She just needed to take care of things without anyone noticing, since everyone knew her position as the country's empress in the palace. A prince who gave birth to a child, not only did he not receive any punishment, he didn't need to worry about food and clothing. This showed her position in the emperor's heart. Actually, she only came back to the Luo Manor for one thing. She wanted to know if she had ever forgotten something. Qing, are you? Why are you back? Luo Mu was surprised to see her, but also a little scared. Luo Qingshun's father, Luo's Luo, Feng Luo's Luo. It can't be that she wanted to elope with Feng Xingyu, right? Mother, what kind of expression is this? Luo Qingshun softly patted her hand. Don't worry, I'm just here to ask you some questions. Questions? Luo was still a bit worried since this timing was too much of a coincidence. Xiao Chui, close the door and don't let anyone in, all right? Yes. Empress. Chapter 13:17. Mother Luo was surprised. She never thought that Luo Qingshun would ask this question. After all, since then, the matter of her illness had become a taboo. Luo Gong ordered that no one could talk about this for an unknown reason. It's like this. Mother Luo's eyes drifted as she slightly knit her brows. Daughter, why are you asking this? Although the memories are a bit fuzzy, at least I remember that I was in bed for a long time. Luo Qingshun slightly knit her brows. If I'm not wrong, it should have been over 2 months. Yes, it was like this. But the strange thing is, I don't know why I was in bed for over 2 months. Her clear eyes looked at Mother Luo, who was a bit flustered as she said, Then there's almost no memory of the past 10 days. The previous host didn't care that much about this matter, so she didn't care about this memory. But the dream last night made her feel a bit uneasy. Yes, you were very sick back then. Mother Luo nodded before looking around. Your father allowed others to mention this matter, so don't ask about it in the future. Mother, this is very strange. She raised her eyebrows slightly, and a faint light flashed in her eyes. Why can't I allow others to mention this matter? This Luo Qingshun wanted to keep asking, but there was a quick knock on the door that cut her off. Empress, Master Luo said that there is a guest in the Luo Manor. Oh, young Master Feng Xingyu. Luo Qingshun slightly knit her brows, feeling that something bad would happen. After Feng Xingyu returned to Long Peace City, the first thing he did was head to the Luo Manor. No matter what the reason was, Luo Gong was his honored master. It was just that he couldn't stay here for long in this place where the wind and waves were blowing. Feng Zue had indeed found a manor in the western suburbs that had been abandoned for a long time. But he never thought that Feng Xingyu would dare take such a big risk to come to the Luo Manor. Master, no matter what, I have to thank you for your appreciation. Feng Xingyu was wearing a light purple robe with a handsome face. It should be because of the strong wind in the barren north that his eyes looked a bit old. Ai, Father Luo sighed and said, I heard that Qing Er did everything she could to get you back. Qing Feng Xingyu narrowed his eyes as a complicated emotion flashed in them. There's a bit of hatred and a bit of unwillingness. Yeah. Luo Gong looked at him deeply and said, "You're a talent cultivated by me. I know better than anyone else what you're thinking. However, I must remind you that everything has already been decided. Don't go against the heavens." "Fixed number?" He shook his head helplessly and said with a bitter smile, "If I hadn't been forced to return to Chang'an this time, perhaps many things wouldn't have ended up like this." "What do you mean?" "Nothing. Feng Xing, you said. I accidentally heard that Qing isn't a manner." Now that he had returned to Chang, and he had disrupted all his plans to gather forces in the northern wilderness. But since he had returned, there was nothing wrong with using another breakthrough to achieve great things. "It really is a coincidence. I don't know why she suddenly came back today." Luo Gong's deep eyes had a bit of sharpness as he said, "It can't be that you're still in contact, right?" Chapter 13:18. But he never thought that Feng Si Zue, as the emperor, would actually indulge her like this. This indulgence had already become a kind of indulgence. Even if she made a ridiculous request like having Feng Xing you come back to Long Pi City, he actually agreed to it. "Luo Gong, don't misunderstand Qing." His expression changed slightly. "We never needed to contact each other." If someone asked him if he still loved Luo Qingchen, his answer would be yes. But if he had to choose between his country and Luo Qingchen, he would definitely choose the former. However, in order to achieve the former, he would do anything. In the back garden, Luo Qingchen was prepared to head to Luo Gong's room. But she never thought that she would meet Feng Xingyu around the corner. The two of them looked at each other like a river. She saw desire and power in his eyes, but he couldn't see anything in her eyes. Those clear as water eyes, but there wasn't any joy in their reunion. How could it be like this? Did he see wrong? "Qing." He softly called her before flying in her direction. When he was planning on taking her in his embrace, she took a step back. She slowly looked up at him and said in a cold voice, "Young Master Feng, there's a large difference between our statuses. Please respect yourself." She looked up with the arrogance of the master of the harem, as those beautiful eyes didn't have any emotions at all. Feng Xingyu was stunned at that moment. That girl who didn't hesitate to go against Feng Si Zue for him was actually this indifferent after reuniting. No, impossible. He didn't believe that she would have a change of heart. It was definitely impossible. "I know there are a lot of people here. Wait for me. I won't let you down." His pair of resolute eyes stared deeply at her, wanting to break through her disguise. But he didn't know that the current Luo Qingchen didn't need to disguise herself at all. Feng Xingyu really couldn't compare to a stranger in her heart. At least a stranger wouldn't use her. No matter where it is, this one will say the same thing. She raised her eyebrows slightly, the corners of her mouth curling into an extremely faint smile as she said, "Since young Master Feng has returned to Chang'an, you should rest well in the mansion. After all, Miss Qian probably doesn't want us to interact too much." It was time for Qian Siyu to appear. She didn't know why, but in the instant that she called herself his consort, she felt an inexplicable sense of pride. At first, Luo Qingchen wasn't 100% certain that Feng Xingyu had met Qian Siyu, but based on his expression, he should have already met her. Or perhaps they had already reached the stage where they would pledge their lives to each other. You. He was clearly a loss for words. After all, whether it was on the way back to Chang, or when they moved into the mansion in the suburbs, Qian Siyu had always appeared as his personal maid. How could Luo Qingchen know the relationship between him and Qian Siyu? How could it be? This consort has said everything that needs to be said. She narrowed her eyes as she looked at Feng Xingyu. If you're smart, you should know what you can do and what you shouldn't think about. As soon as her voice fell, she flicked her sleeve and didn't take another look at Feng Xingyu as she turned to leave. Feng Xingyu was left standing there alone, not knowing what to do. Chapter 13:19. At the same time, in the endless hall, a row of eunuchs and maids were kneeling on the ground. There was a rich wine fragrance in the air, and the ground was covered in broken wine jars. Feng Sizue was half leaning on the couch, drinking cup after cup of wine. His dark eyes were filled with despair, and there was a bitter smile of ridicule on his lips. As expected, she was a liar. Even though his heart had already been torn into pieces, he still spared no effort in trying to stab his wounded heart again. He really was stupid. That day, in the splendid hall, she had spoken softly and attentively studied his illness. His slightly cold palm covered her eyes. He actually naively thought that this time she really wanted to be with him. Hee. What a joke. Feng Xing, you had just arrived in Long Pi City, and she wasn't even willing to wait a day before secretly meeting him in a Luo manner. Just how much did she love him? Emperor, uniquely kowtowed. You have to take care of your dragon body. Take care? He raised a brow before saying with a bitter smile, the person this one loves the most is eager to leave this one and wants this one to die. Let me ask you, how should this one take care? There was a trace of sadness in his voice, like a child who had lost everything. When he looked up, there was a mist in his eyes. You can all leave. But Emperor scram, a loud roar was heard, and the entire everlasting palace instantly quieted down. He closed his eyes, and the image of her playing chess appeared in his mind. Feng pursed his lips proudly when he lost, letting her feel the joy of victory when she won. It was just a small action, but it could easily move his heart. But why couldn't she lie to him for a bit longer? Actually, it didn't take that long. 1 year. 1 year was enough. After all, he didn't even know if he could live for a year. If after he died, he would say that he wanted to go to hell with her, but he was very clear in his heart that he wasn't willing. He wanted to be by her side. He wanted to be good to her. He didn't want to let her go, but he also didn't want her to be sad. Spear, shield, year after year. He would occasionally think, why don't he take a few more concubines? Perhaps they would be able to enter his heart. But every time he had this kind of thought, he would always bitterly smile. Was there any place in his heart for anyone else? Da. A familiar sound of footsteps slowly approached him. His heart suddenly jumped, and the moment he raised his eyes, those beautiful eyes that were as deep as the sea dimmed. Don't drink anymore. Shi Jin gave a deep sigh. Why torture yourself like this? Why can't she feel sorry for me when I torture myself like this? He smiled bitterly, picked up the wine cup on the table, and drank it in one gulp. There were traces of tears in the corners of his eyes as he said, even if it's just for a moment, it's fine. He couldn't help thinking of Luo Qingshun and Feng Xingyu together, meeting after a long separation. She must be very happy. She doesn't have a heart. Shi Jin's voice trembled a bit as she said in a choked-up voice, could it be that the Emperor can't open his heart to accept others? Could it be that there is no one in this world other than her? Perhaps she should stand up. When he needed someone to accompany him the most, she should firmly stand by his side and repay him for protecting him over the years. Feng Zue gave a cold laugh and closed his eyes. After a while, he slowly said, it has to be her. Chapter 1320. When she came back to the palace, it was already midnight. Xiao Chui took care of everything, and she secretly returned to the splendid hall. Of course, it was only because she thought that no one knew. After all, the people of the palace all knew. She could enter the palace so easily because Feng Zue had already sent a decree, sending people to wait for her. When she came to the entrance of the splendid hall, Luo Qingshun saw an unfamiliar figure. She wore a honey-colored, ancient, smoke-patterned jade-green robe and a pair of phoenix-embroidered shoes. She had a 100-flower bun, and there was a silver, gilded butterfly hairpin on her head, looking very noble. Right now, in this large harem, there was only one person who could dress like this. Shi Jin. The previous host didn't know much about Shi Jin. Perhaps they had met before, perhaps they hadn't. In short, if she had to remember what Shi Jin looked like, she definitely couldn't remember. Shi Jin greets the Empress. She seemed to have heard footsteps and turned to give her a bow. The snow was very big tonight, and she was kneeling in the snow like this, giving people a very delicate feeling. But she knew that she wasn't weak like a little white flower. The feeling she gave her was more like a plea. There's no need for this. Luo Qingshun slowly walked towards her. When she wanted to help her up, she suddenly looked up and said, Shi Jin has a request. If the Empress doesn't agree to Shi Jin's request, Shi Jin will kneel and not get up. As she spoke, tears fell from her bright eyes like pearls from a broken necklace, falling drop by drop. Luo Qingshun took back her hand and narrowed her eyes as she softly said, I don't like being threatened the most. She didn't have any hostility towards Shijin, but she also didn't have any good intentions. After all, she was a small-minded person. She only thought of the pair. She couldn't accept sand in her eyes. Shijin closed her eyes and tightly bit her lip as she said, "The Empress should go see the Emperor." These words made Luo Qingxun's brows tremble. It was like she had a new view of the girl kneeling in front of her. Everlasting Palace. Eunuch Li and several palace maids who were originally in the hall stood outside the door. When they saw Luo Qingxun slowly walking over, they all looked as if they had seen their savior. Luo Qingxun just waved her hand and said softly, "I know the general situation. You two go to the Imperial Hospital to make some hangover tea. You two go to the Imperial Kitchen to make some porridge. Eunuch Li, just wait outside. If there's anything, I'll call you." "Yes, Empress." Eunuch Li bowed deeply and said, "Empress, His Majesty, His Majesty." There's no need to say more. Her brows trembled slightly. "I know." In the next second, she slowly opened the door to the Everlasting Palace. The fragrance of wine permeated the air, giving people a feeling of endless desolation. She never thought that her trip back to the Luo Manor would be mistaken for a secret meeting with Feng Xingyu. She didn't dare imagine what kind of reaction Feng Sizue would have when he learned of this. He was such a stubborn man with passionate love, but his heart was broken again and again. What kind of pain was that? She made a decision at that moment. With 50% completion rate, it was a very risky decision. This concubine greets the Emperor. Her voice was very soft, but in the silent, everlasting palace, her voice was very clear. It was very dark in the hall, and all the candles had been extinguished. Seeing that no one responded, when she was planning on walking forward, there was a cool as water voice that entered her ears. Chapter 1321. Cha-cha. There was a sharp sound that rang out. It was like the sound of porcelain being stepped on. The sound was getting closer and closer. In an instant, the smell of blood assailed her nostrils, and she was pulled into a warm embrace at this moment. This was a kind of embrace that used all his strength, a kind of suffocating embrace. So stubborn that even in death, he wasn't willing to let her go. Luo Qingxun closed her eyes and felt her breathing stop. Her nose became stuffy as tears came out. "Sorry." She bit her lip and took a deep breath. Sorry. She should say sorry, whether it was the previous host or her. She should apologize to Feng Sizue. Feng Sizue's body froze, and his heart skipped a beat. His deep voice sounded in her ears. "What did you say?" "Feng Sizue, I won't leave. I will never leave." She bit her lip and said the words that she wanted to say the most in her heart. Ding! Hatred has decreased by 20, currently 0. Mission completion rate is now 70%. It seemed like he didn't hate her. Could it be that as long as she didn't leave, he wouldn't hate her? Why was his request so humble? Silence. It fell into a deathly silence, until the maid outside the door loudly said, "Empress, the hangover tea and porridge are here for you." Luo Qingxun said in a soft voice, "Come in. Light the lamp while you're at it." When the cool candlelight shined in her eyes, she raised her hand to cover it, but her eyes opened wide from a cry of surprise. Ding dong. After a scream, the hangover tea and porridge fell to the ground at the same time. Luo Qingxun knit her brows and looked in the direction they were looking at. There was actually a pair of bloody feet. There was a large wine jar in front of her, and there was a dark red patch on it. It was all covered in blood. "Feng Sizue?" Luo Qingxun blurted out these 3 words. The man tightly holding her didn't care about the cries of surprise around them at all, as he gently said in her ear, "I'm here." At this moment, she really wanted to cry in his arms and tell him not to be heartbroken anymore. Really, I can't feel heartache anymore. 2 hours later, the imperial physician finished bandaging his foot. His face was pale, probably because he had lost a lot of blood. "Although I didn't injure any bones, I've lost a lot of blood. I can't touch the wound for the next few days." He responded faintly with a smile that was difficult to hide on his lips. At this moment, there was actually a wisp of unconcealable joy in his heart. "I'll take my leave first." The imperial physician glanced at Luo Qingshen and didn't forget to add, "I'll have to trouble the empress to take good care of the emperor." There was no wall in this world that didn't have a crack. It seemed like many people in the palace knew about her meeting with Feng Xingyu today. The imperial doctor probably felt sorry for Feng Zue. Actually, she could understand. "Don't worry, this consort will." She nodded lightly, her expression serious. The maids brought in the newly cooked porridge and cleaned up all the broken pieces on the ground. Feng Zue waved his hand. "You can all leave." Everyone looked at each other in dismay, then bowed and said, "This servant will take his leave." The door to the endless hall was softly closed, and there was only her and Feng Zue left in the hall. Chapter 1322. Luo Qingshan looked at the leg that was wrapped up like a chicken leg and pursed her lips. "Does it hurt?" The 10 fingers were connected to the heart. It should hurt to step on the ceramic shards with bare feet. He slowly raised his right hand and tightly grabbed her wrist as he pulled it to his side. This kind of pain isn't considered pain for this one. After all, he had experienced the pain of 10,000 arrows piercing his heart. It was so painful that he held his chest and felt like he couldn't breathe. Luo Qingshan was surprised. She felt her heart beating fast, and there was a faint blush on her white cheeks. "Eat. Eat something?" "All right." His voice was no longer cold. Rather, there was a kind of pampering gentleness that invaded her heart. She pursed her lips and slightly knit her brows. "In the future, don't drink that much. It's not good for your body. Don't leave me in the future because that's not good for my body." When he said this, he didn't use this one, but rather me. It was like a kind of pleading in the words of me. "I won't leave you." She looked up and her lips curled into a beautiful curve. "I came back to the Luo family today because—" "Don't say it." His slender fingers softly pressed her lips, and his deep eyes looked away in a panic. "It's fine as long as you don't leave this one next time. Don't say it this time." He didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to hear anything related to her and Feng Xingyu. As long as she stayed by his side like this, he could forget everything from the past. After all, he really loved her too much. At this moment, he loved her more than ever. "No." She slowly raised her hand and tightly held his hand. She looked at him with a pair of clear eyes. "I have to say it." Whether it was a fact or a misunderstanding, she wanted to see Feng Zue in pain. She had to admit, she felt pain for him, very pain for this stubborn emperor. Feng Zue tightly knit his brows, and his fingers trembled from her grip. He took a deep breath and looked into her eyes as he said in a gentle voice, "Speak. I'll listen." Luo Qingshan pursed her lips into a smile and placed a kiss on his cheek without any warning. "Talk while you eat." He was suddenly stunned and didn't come back to his senses for a long time. Only when Luo Qingshan brought the porridge to his mouth did he take her wrist. In an instant, those slightly cool lips kissed her domineeringly. The bowl of porridge in her hand fell to the ground with a thud. Before she could regain her senses, he pushed her down and kissed her passionately. After an unknown amount of time, he seemed to have felt her rapid breathing and slowly let go of her. She looked down a bit and touched her ears in embarrassment. I still haven't said it yet." "You can speak slowly. There's a lot of time." His gentle voice sounded beside her ear like a warm current that made her whole body go limp. He softly took her in his embrace and said, "Tonight, we won't go back." Once upon a time, he had also taken her in his embrace, but she only wanted to take revenge on him at that time. Once upon a time, when he thought that he could finally have her forever, she had personally killed their child. At that time, she had smiled at him, a wild smile. That smile, he would never forget it in this lifetime. Chapter 1323. This feeling was very strange. It was like the person in front of him was Luo Qingshan, but it wasn't Luo Qingshan at the same time. Her smile had a special cuteness to it, and her eyes were as clear as water. When she looked at him, there wasn't a trace of hatred. But now, if this was still a lie, he would rather die than leave this lie. He would rather be lied to for an entire life and stay by her side until he died. "Why do you look like you're looking at death like this?" Luo Qingshan raised her right hand to smooth his forehead. "Don't show that painful expression in the future, because I will always be by your side. She said it very slowly, word for word, incomparably clear. She wanted to reassure him and make him trust her. After all, she would never lie to him. All right. He slowly raised his hand and softly stroked her cheek. This one, I really love you too much. You cannot love me, but can you not leave me? He put down his identity, put down his pride, and put down everything, using his heart that was already full of holes in exchange for a promise. He didn't need her love. It was fine as long as she didn't leave. I will love you. I will love you very, very much. She almost couldn't control her emotions as tears filled her eyes. In the next second, she covered her eyes with her hands, but hot tears still fell down her cheeks. Feng Sizue lovingly patted her head before kissing her tears. His deep voice slowly said, "Don't cry. This one doesn't want you to cry at all. But I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth. I will love you very, very much." She couldn't control her emotions as she tightly bit her lip. Feng Sizue, believe me. She felt that he was speaking to her in a very pampering tone, but he didn't believe the words. She will love him very much. She suddenly felt a bit aggrieved, a strange aggrieved feeling that wildly attacked her. I believe you. Seeing her cry so sadly, he suddenly felt a little helpless. He could only gently pat her back. Fool, don't cry. I believe you, Luo Qingchun, I believe in you. All of a sudden, he was not used to addressing himself as emperor in front of her. He wanted to be like a normal married couple with her, talking about you and me, talking about vows. As long as he had her, the throne was not even worth mentioning to him. He wanted to be with her on a deserted mountain, working from sunrise to sunset. But it seemed like he didn't have much time left. Let me tell you, I had you call Feng Xingyu back for a reason. She pursed her lips in an aggrieved manner as tears still remained in the corners of her eyes. A pair of misty eyes stared at him seriously and said word by word, he already has his own power in the northern wilderness. If he continues to develop like this, he will definitely attack Chong, and in less than a year. Feng Sizue heard this, and his body froze, not even daring to breathe. Why aren't you saying anything? Seeing the stunned Feng Sizue, her nose turned sour. I'm telling the truth. You, go and investigate. I'm not lying to you. Woo. She was firmly held by the man in front of her. That overwhelming kiss, mixed with her tears, crazily took over her thoughts, declaring the sovereignty of an emperor. Chapter 1324. That night, Feng Sizue didn't sleep at all. He almost didn't dare close his eyes, afraid that he would fall asleep while hugging her, only to find that it was all a dream when he woke up. She, on the other hand, was sleeping soundly. Lying beside him, she felt especially safe. No matter what, she should protect him from any harm. After all, he had suffered too much. Her heart really hurt for him. The next morning, when she opened her eyes, Feng Sizue was no longer by her side. This seemed to be her first time spending the night in the Endless Hall. She vaguely remembered that when the previous host and Feng Sizue were together, it was always in the splendid hall. Moreover, she had only slept with him once. In the previous host's world, that was an accident. The rest of the time, she would light a special kind of musk in the splendid hall that made people fall asleep. Luo Qingchun slightly knit her brows. She didn't want to think about the past. No matter what, the one standing by Feng Sizue's side was her, Luo Qingchun, a Luo Qingchun who definitely didn't love Feng Xingyu. Empress, you're awake. Xiao Chui slowly came in and wrung out a towel for her. The emperor was afraid that the servants in the Primal Chaos Hall couldn't serve the empress well, so he had Xiao Chui come to help the empress get up. Is the emperor in court? Luo Qingchun took the towel to wash her face. Looking at the sky, he should be back by now. After all, looking at the position of the sun outside the window, it should be in the middle of the night. Empress, did you forget? Xiao Chui stuttered a bit. Today is 100 flowers bloom. Get 'em. At this moment, she could clearly feel her heart thumping. She didn't feel good about it. There had been too many things recently, so she didn't remember this at all. It seemed like he was planning on choosing his own concubines and didn't need her to personally send them to the Endless Hall. Thinking of this, she felt that her heart didn't just feel a bit, it was a very bad feeling. Xiao Chui, help me find a magnificent dress. Let's go to the banquet balcony and enjoy the so-called 100 flowers compete. She snorted softly, planning to have a harem drama. Yes, your highness. Xiao Chui smiled. Suddenly, she really liked this empress. She would no longer treat the emperor cruelly. She would no longer treat herself cruelly. The 100 flowers bloom starts at noon. This time, in addition to the young mistresses of the original host palace, there are also some young ladies from rich families who have just reached the age of 18. Most of them were daughters of court officials, and a few of them were talented commoners. This kind of matter was usually handled by the master of ceremonies in the palace. This time, she made the scene very big. Feng Xizhe didn't even have time to cancel it before the 100 flowers bloom began. Feng Xizhe, sitting on the high platform, had an ugly look on his face. His sharp eyes narrowed, and there was a chill that came from his body. How could he have forgotten about this matter? These people were probably being paid too much, so they were desperately trying to find something to do. The next performer is a folk girl from the northern wasteland with extraordinary dancing skills. Lady Qian Xiu, the master of ceremonies, said in a very loud voice. Even Luo Qingshun, who was standing not far away, could hear him clearly. Her footsteps unconsciously came to a halt. Empress, what is it? Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes as a chill appeared in them. Nothing. Chapter 1325. There was the sound of an exotic pipa that slowly rang out. Qian Xiyu was wearing a purple peach blossom dress and a pair of soft shoes with peacock beads. She had a graceful figure and a graceful dance. There was a transparent veil on her face and a string of golden beads on it. Luo Qingshun was wearing a sky blue dress and a pair of phoenix embroidered shoes. She stood not far away, looking at Qian Xiyu in front of her. Although she was wearing a veil, it couldn't hide the fact that she was a beauty. It seemed like Feng Xingyu had changed his strategy because of her cold attitude at the Luo Manor last time. This man really was funny. He actually wanted Qian Xiyu to enter the palace? It wasn't that she was looking down on Qian Xiyu, but she was certain that no one could enter Feng Xizue's heart, other than herself. She looked over at Feng Xize on the stage. He slightly knit his brows, and his eyes were fixed on the upper right corner, looking dazed. That was the endless hall that she had just left. The pipa fell, and the dance fell. Feng Xize casually waved his hand, signaling for the next one. After all, after not seeing her for a few hours, he was a bit missing her. He was even a bit worried that she wouldn't be happy if she knew that he went to the 100 Flowers competition. But a ruler didn't joke. Since he had agreed to this, there was no reason to take it back. Even if the person who was the most worried was him, the master of ceremonies had an awkward look on his face. After all, there were so many performances, and the emperor wasn't satisfied with a single one. It seemed like he had completely thrown the matter of concubines to the back of his mind. Pa, Luo Qingshun clapped her hands as she slowly walked to the stage. She could clearly feel Qian Xiyu's eyes widen under the stage, and her hands were a bit helpless. Qing, why are you here? Feng Xizue was surprised, looking a bit nervous. It was like he had done something wrong and was caught by his wife. However, he had to admit that her sudden appearance made him very happy in his heart. After all, he really missed her. Really missed her. Why can't I come? Luo Qingshun pursed her lips and gently pouted. I promised someone that I would personally select a few imperial concubines and send them to his everlasting palace. Her voice was very soft, and her expression was very soft. Only the people standing beside Feng Xize could hear it. Feng Xizue raised his right hand and grabbed her wrist, bringing her to his side. He firmly held her as he said, Do you know what you're saying? No matter if she was cold in the past, or if she was hypocritical. She had never said such words to him before. She was really angry at him with a hint of arrogance. She was angry at him for looking at other girls. This feeling was really good, I know. Luo Qingshun's clear eyes blinked at him. Isn't this the deal the emperor made with me? So you're here, too. Feng Xizue's right hand came back, and he held her even tighter as he said in a gentle voice, Help this one choose a concubine. Seeing her slightly arrogant look and slightly pursed lips, he couldn't help wanting to tease her. He had never teased her before. This was his first time. He was a bit worried, not knowing if she would be angry. If she was angry, would she not want him? Nonsense. Luo Qingshun gave a soft snort. Our conditions have collapsed. I'm here to end the deal. Chapter 1326. The system's clear voice slowly sounded. Her lips curled slightly as she felt very happy. She looked at Feng Zizue's deep gaze and felt that this moment was very beautiful. After all, everyone's eyes were on her, including Qin Siyu on the stage. The master of ceremonies said in a trembling voice, "Since the Empress is here, the people chosen from this 100 Flowers competition will be even more outstanding. See." The eunuchs and maids standing beside Feng Zizue all took a cold breath. Being with the ruler was like being with a tiger. They couldn't be clearer on Feng Zizue's personality. Did this master of ceremonies have no brains? Or did he have no brains? He actually dared to say this in front of the Empress. Could it be that he wanted to move his head and body? As expected, Luo Qingshun could feel the change in Feng Zizue's eyes. There was a chill that came from all around, and there was even a bit of snow that fell from the sky. The master of ceremonies suddenly knelt down. This minister deserves death. This minister deserves death. After all, he was an official of the court and in the palace. He had the most basic observation skills. Feng Zizue took her hand and said with a cold snort, "From this day forth, there will be no more 100 Flowers competition in this one's palace." As soon as his voice fell, he wanted to pick her up by the waist. But she quickly took a step back, and her eyes fell onto his feet. She pointed at the sedan on the side and softly said, "It's snowing, Emperor. Let's sit in the sedan." The goose feather like snowflakes fell onto her lashes, and the way she stood in the snow with a faint smile made him unable to stop his mind from wandering. This Luo Qingshun really looked good. It was like she was a fairy that had descended to the mortal world. When they returned to the endless hall, the snow in the sky was getting heavier. Eunuch Li brewed a pot of tea, and Xiao Chui brought up some exquisite desserts before the two of them left. Luo Qingshun hugged a heater as she leaned against Feng Zizue's shoulder. She looked at him reading memorials on the side and said, "Emperor, I feel that you should choose 2 people to enter the palace." Feng Zizue heard this, and his pen froze. He didn't know why the girl beside him said this. Seeing that he didn't speak, Luo Qingshun's lips curled slightly. That Qin Siyu is Feng Xingyu's person. In the next second, he picked up the brush in his hand and lightly tapped her face. "What's wrong? You're sad." When he said this, his tone was different from before. It was no longer the tone of despair. On the contrary, there was a warm feeling, although she seemed to be a little jealous. Luo Qingshun rubbed her cheeks. Her palms were stained with black ink. She pretended to look at him angrily and said, "Sad my ass. I've never been sad for him." She wasn't lying. She wasn't the previous host, so naturally she wasn't interested in Feng Xingyu. Whether he believed it or not, it was the truth. Then why did you let that woman into the palace? He put down the brush in his hand and softly wiped her little cat face. This one doesn't want to see her. Think about it. Feng Xingyu has already made a move. We can't just sit and wait. Luo Qingshun was a bit surprised. She raised her hand to touch the ancient mark behind his ear and said, "It's better to let her enter the palace. That way we can see what kind of medicine they are selling." Chapter 1327. The next morning, Jun Si happily brought 2 people to the rooms where the young mistresses were living. One was Qin Siyu, who danced yesterday, and the other was Lu Xiao, who played the pipa yesterday. Why was there an extra pipa player? The process was like this. Last night in the Endless Hall. "Emperor, don't you think it's too obvious to only let Qin Siyu enter the palace? It's all right. Let's pick another one. After all, Feng Xingyu is such a cautious person. We need to avoid his suspicions." He was silent for 3 seconds before saying, "Then let's pick the one who plays the pipa." After the 100 Flowers competition, many people in the court began to talk. Most of them were about Feng Zizue favoring only one person in the harem, and that person was the woman who had killed her own child. However, that was all he could say. After all, whether it was the emperor above 10,000 people or the imperial censor below 10,000 people, no one could offend them. A few days later, in a house on the west side of the city, Feng Xingyu was pacing back and forth in his room with a serious look as several confidants from the northern wilderness stood on the side. Master Feng, Miss Qian has been in the palace for a few days now. Have you found a chance to make a move? A man with a face full of stubble called Lu Ming couldn't sit still. Feng Xingyu stopped, and his sharp eyes suddenly looked up. She doesn't even have a chance to see the emperor. He didn't understand where the problem was. Since Feng Zue had already picked Qian Siyu out of the 100 flowers for her to enter the palace, why didn't he spare her a single glance? This really was too strange. Then isn't Miss Qian trapped in the palace? Lu Ming's words made Feng Xingyu knit his brows. It wasn't unreasonable for him to say this. Could it be that Feng Zue had an expert helping him and knew his every move? If he's heartless, I'll be unrighteous. After a while, Feng Xingyu narrowed his deep eyes. It'll be the ancestral worship at Purple Phoenix Mountain in 7 days. That will be our best chance. He didn't know why everything went so smoothly in the northern wilderness, but he was suddenly called back to Long Peace City. After all, both Luo Qingxin and Qian Siyu were people he could use. However, what he didn't expect was that no matter what he did, there seemed to be a force stopping him. The forces of the northern wilderness collapsed. Right now, he could only stake everything on a single throw, betting everything on the Violet Phoenix Mountain's ancestral worship. The cycle of fate was always revolving. A few years ago, he was able to cause him to fall into a dangerous situation in the Purple Phoenix Mountain. A few years later, he would make him lose his life there. Bang! The sound of a fist hitting the table was heard. This time, he had no way out. At the same time, in the imperial garden of the palace, Qian Siyu and Lu Xiao were singing a little song in the pavilion in the back garden. The sweet and mellow melody carried a touch of sadness. Feng Zue happened to pass by and stopped when he heard this. Qian Siyu's eyebrows trembled slightly as a faint smile appeared on her face. Jun Si said that the emperor liked to walk this path, so she and Lu Xiao came to test their moods. Who would have thought that they would run into it? Such a scene was very, very beautiful. Thick snow blanketed the entire place in a vast expanse of whiteness. Qian Siyu was wearing thin clothes, and the snow fell onto her eyelashes. Her beautiful dance and crisp voice made everyone who heard it stop in their tracks. Naturally, that included Feng Zue. Chapter 1328. He narrowed his cold eyes and slightly knit his brows as he walked in the direction of the pavilion. Qian Siyu seemed to have calculated Feng Zue's position, and with a spin, she deliberately twisted her foot and fell down. Feng Zue's expression changed slightly as his lips curled into a faint curve. His eyes narrowed, and he couldn't help taking a step back. With a pung sound, Qian Siyu fell to the ground. Lu Xiao on the side was surprised before quickly kneeling down. Lu Xiao greets the emperor. At this time, Qian Siyu's delicate hands were red from the ice. Her crooked foot was scratched. She clenched her fists in a bit of annoyance and bit her lip before suddenly looking up. Siyu greets the emperor. Actually, at this moment, she was very satisfied with the way she was acting. Her bright eyes were filled with tears, and there was a tear mole at the corner of her eye, making her look even more pitiful. She was very confident that she would be able to obtain the emperor's favor like this. After all, every man had the desire to protect the weak, and Feng Zue, as the emperor, was even more so. But she didn't know that he just gave a slight nod as a sparkle appeared in his deep eyes. "What are you doing here?" Qian Siyu was surprised, but she suddenly froze when she heard Feng Zue's cold tone. Before attacking, she had heard Feng Xingyu describe this person. A violent and paranoid emperor. He wasn't easy to approach. But this was her mission, and since she promised Feng Xingyu, she had to do it. After all, she was already pregnant with his child. Yesterday, he saw with his own eyes how gentle this man, who was known as the ice-cold emperor, was to his empress. Although she wasn't as beautiful as Luo Qingxun, as long as she was pitiful enough, she would definitely be able to enter his heart. Reporting to the emperor, she gave a weak bow before saying in a soft voice, "So you saw the beautiful scenery in the back garden and thought that it shouldn't have been snowing yet. So she came here with Lu Xiao to enjoy the snow. Didn't the master of ceremonies tell you that the back garden isn't a place you can come whenever you want? He gave a cold snort as a fierce look flashed in his deep eyes. At this time, he suddenly remembered what Luo Qingshan had done for him. This Qian Si Yu was Feng Xingyu's person. Without knowing why, the hostility in his heart kept rising. It should be this feeling of hating the house and its crow. Qian Si Yu was surprised before looking up in a panic as crystal tears fell from her eyes. She tightly pursed her lips and said, "Reporting to the emperor, it was all Si Yu's fault. Si Yu, just thinking of the emperor." What a grieved voice, what a naked confession. She was kneeling on the ground in the snow as tears fell down drop by drop. Just to touch Feng Si Zue's heartstrings. But she would never know that. No one in this world could touch this man's heart, because it had already been completely filled, and there was not a single gap left. Hee. Feng Si narrowed his eyes and said in a sharp voice, "Could it be that you don't know that you will disturb the Empress' rest by playing and singing here?" Actually, this was the most important reason why he had stopped. Could it be that they didn't know that the back garden was very close to the splendid hall, and that the two of them would disturb his Empress? The news that he often took this path was revealed to them by the Master of Ceremonies. Chapter 1329. Qian Si was a bit surprised. When she came back to her senses, she was already looking at Feng Si Zue's back. At this moment, there was an indescribable feeling in her heart. She felt that this emperor was completely different from what Feng Xingyu told her. Feng Xingyu told her that this emperor was narrow-minded. Even if he had a harem of 3,000 beauties, he still stole the woman he loved the most and separated them. She admired Feng Xingyu's love, so she unknowingly fell in love with him. It started with his face and was loyal to her love. Later, Feng Xingyu gradually forgot Luo Qingshan with her, and the two of them finally came together. She knew that her love had moved the infatuated Feng Xingyu, but she never thought that in this Empress Park, she would meet a man who was even more infatuated than Feng Xingyu. That person was the emperor. Splendid Hall. Luo Qingshan was sitting at her desk with tightly knit brows, looking at a map of the Purple Phoenix Mountain in front of her. She felt that when Feng Si Zue headed to the Purple Phoenix Mountain in a few days, she would feel a bit uneasy. Her feeling had always been very accurate, so for those unnecessary parting of life and death, she decided that she would definitely go to the ancestral worship ceremony. "Don't think too much, this one won't bring you." There was a cool voice that came from behind her. She was pulled into a pair of arms and fell into a warm embrace. She pursed her lips into a smile as she felt warmth fill her heart. Feng Size really was special. He had a strange desire to protect her, always following her without stopping. "No." She gently shook her head and nodded. "I want to go." "What are you going to do in this cold weather?" Feng Sizue knit his brows, but his voice was still filled with pampering. He softly patted her head and said, "Just be good and wait for this one to come back. You've decided that you definitely won't bring me." Luo Qingshan was already thinking of Plan B in her heart. After all, she knew how important she was to Feng Sizue. If he didn't want her to go for safety reasons, he wouldn't agree no matter how she begged. Feng Size heard her slightly depressed tone and said with a helpless smile, "That place isn't safe." He actually knew that the Purple Phoenix Mountain wasn't safe. Could it be that he also had a sixth sense? "Why? Isn't it safe?" Luo Qingshan pursed her lips and looked at her as she asked this. The Purple Phoenix Mountain worshipped their ancestors once a year. This was because the previous emperor and the previous emperor were not buried in the Imperial Mausoleum. They were both buried in the Purple Phoenix Mountain. It was probably because they had once met at Purple Phoenix Mountain and wanted to peacefully rest there for eternity. After all, the harem had 3,000 beauties in the harem. This also proved why the late emperor had so many sons, but he had to pass the throne to a prince who was poisoned and didn't have long to live. Feng Si Zue Ui at Zue's. Zue his love. Because, after a long time, his eyes seemed to drift. He slowly opened his mouth and said, "There are many poisonous insects and wild beasts in Purple Phoenix Mountain. It's not good for a girl like you to go." Memories of the past echoed in his mind. Some fates were always very similar. For example, when he met her, it was also at the majestic Purple Phoenix Mountain. At that time, he wasn't married and she wasn't married. He couldn't make her fall in love with him because he was useless, but if he could do it all over again, he would definitely make the same choice. Chapter 1330. Poisonous Insects and Beasts. Luo Qingchun slightly knit her brows as a doubtful look flashed at her eyes. Did you see any poisonous insects on the Purple Phoenix Mountain before? Or could it be you? You were poisoned on the Purple Phoenix Mountain? Luo Qingchun was scared by the second half of her deduction since there was a basis for Feng Shizue's words. He was slightly taken aback. He slowly raised his right hand and gently knocked on her forehead. Nonsense, isn't it? Of course not. Feng Shizue's eyes sparkled. This was a lie. But to her, it was a white lie. There were some things that as long as he didn't say it, no one would dare say a single word. He was very clear on what that wandering Taoist had told him. He was very clear on where to get the antidote for the bloodbone snake poison. But he wouldn't take it. Luo Qingchun didn't keep asking because she knew that there would be no results no matter how she asked. Although she could feel that Feng Shizue might not be telling the truth. That night, she slept very deeply, so deeply that she even dreamed of the forest. This time, she clearly saw the stone tablet at the foot of the mountain. There were 3 words clearly written on it, Purple Phoenix Mountain. When she opened her eyes, her back was covered in cold sweat. She reached out to touch the spot beside her, but Feng Shizue was no longer there. Looking out the window, it was already noon. Xiao Chui heard this and quickly came in. Did the Empress have a nightmare again? Luo Qingchun rubbed her brows. Where's the Emperor? There was a faint feeling of unease that slowly filled her heart, making her feel very depressed. Empress, you don't know? Xiao Chui said. The ancestral worship ceremony at the Purple Phoenix Mountain has been moved forward and has been changed to today. What? Luo Qingchun lifted the blanket, and her hands couldn't help being covered in cold sweat. Empress, your face doesn't look good. Xiao Chui will call the imperial doctor for you. No need. Luo Qingchun waved her hand and tightly knit her brows. When did the Emperor set off? We set off at dawn this morning. Xiao Chui answered honestly. Luo Qingchun glanced at the musk on the counter and sighed deeply. It seemed like Feng Shizue had already planned it yesterday. He definitely wouldn't let her go. Why? Why was that? Even if Feng Shizue's pampering words pushed the reason why he didn't let her go to the weather and the environment. However, when the Emperor went out, he would definitely have a large number of elite guards by his side, so nothing major would happen. Help me prepare a set of men's clothing. I will be leaving the palace in a while. Luo Qingchun's eyes narrowed. She tied up her long hair as fast as she could, and a touch of determination flashed through her eyes. But in the next second, Xiao Chui's words poured a bucket of cold water on her. Nyang Nyang, His Majesty has already completely sealed off Wuji Palace. There are people in all 4 directions. Even a fly can't fly out. Xiao Chui blinked and said, His Majesty ordered this servant to let Nyang Nyang take good care of herself. In the morning, 3 days from now, the person in Nyang Nyang will see when she opens her eyes will definitely be him. Hearing Xiao Chui's final words, her nose twitched and her eyes couldn't help turning red. Feng Shizue, Feng Shizue, you're so good to a person. You've already reached this point. Prepare the men's clothing for me. She looked up as she tried to remember where Purple Phoenix Mountain was. She had said that no matter what, she would never leave him alone. Yes, Nyang Nyang. Xiao Chui asked in a confused voice, but Nyang Nyang, how will you leave the palace? Chapter 1331. Why did the host summon the exquisite ring? The system was very curious. After all, in a world without powers, the host couldn't use the exquisite ring at will. Cuckoo, don't you think it looks more domineering like this? Actually, she was just preparing for what she was going to do next. After all, when she needed to use her powers, it was safer to have the exquisite ring on her. Xiao Chui found a moon-white robe with plum blossom patterns and a white silk veil for her. She tied up her hair and tied it up with a jade heart crown. Empress, Xiao Chui looked at her clothes and said with a faint smile, "You really look good dressed like this. You're just like a fairy that came down to the mortal world." She had never seen Luo Qingchen wear men's clothes before. She never thought that such simple and elegant men's clothes would look this good on her. Sweet mouth. Luo Qingchen slightly raised her brows and said, "I just want you to help me do something." "Empress, please speak." Xiao Chui nodded. She had an ashen face that promised to complete this task, giving people a very cute feeling. "Go out and wait. Without my orders, don't come in." Luo Qingchen looked at her and said, "Eat the food the maids have brought in." "Empress." Xiao Chui felt a chill run down her back as she said in a trembling voice, "Why do I feel that the Empress words are a bit strange? There are many strange things in this world." Luo Qingchen looked up with a faint smile and said, "Didn't you also say that I looked like a fairy? Who knows, maybe I'm a fairy." After Xiao Chui left the room, she closed her eyes. She blinked and the scene from her dream flashed in her mind. After all, she had to teleport to a place that she or the previous host had been to before. If she couldn't directly go to the foot of the Purple Phoenix Mountain, she could only teleport to the Luo Manor. Ding! 500 exchange points has been taken. Successfully exchanged for teleportation can only be used in this world. It had to be said, she didn't know if it was because her powers had become stronger or because she was more familiar with this world. She found that she was using her powers less and less, which was a kind of growth for her. But for the system, I feel like I can't do business anymore. When he opened his eyes again, he was at the foot of Purple Phoenix Mountain. Sure enough, the memory in the dream was not wrong. The original owner had been here. But why did she forget about it? How could she forget about it? Calculating the time, Feng Size shouldn't be here yet. There was an inn at the foot of the Purple Phoenix Mountain that was closed tonight. It seemed like it was prepared for Feng Sizue. Luo Qingchen raised her eyebrows and walked towards the inn. "Sir, I'm sorry, but our store is closed today." "I know." Luo Qingchen blinked her eyes and said, "I'm just passing by and I'm really hungry. I don't know why, but there isn't a single restaurant on this street." No, that won't do either." The shopkeeper waved his hand and said, "You can go elsewhere." "Ah, young hero, please spare my life." Luo Qingchen couldn't think of a more direct method. She put her right hand behind her and took out the 9-section moon whip from her storage space to put over his head. "I want to stay in a hotel, a top-class room, a bit further away. I won't cause trouble for you, but if you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being impolite." As soon as her voice fell, she put a gold ingot on the table and headed upstairs without looking back. Yes. The shopkeeper trembled in fear. "Young hero, please come this way." Chapter 1332. The shopkeeper arranged for her to stay in the innermost room on the second floor, and she gave him a gold ingot before leaving. She said, "I'm only staying for a night. If someone asks if there's anyone on the second floor, just say that there's no one and I won't make it hard for you." After all, this inn was where the emperor was staying. Feng Sizue's personal guard would definitely be very cautious. Yes. The shopkeeper hadn't recovered from his shock yet, so his voice was trembling. He was very clear that he couldn't offend this person. At this time, it didn't matter if he was good or evil. For him, protecting himself was the most important thing. In the evening, Feng Sizue's group arrived at the inn. The 2 men in the lead were his personal imperial bodyguards. They were loyal and devoted, and their martial arts were excellent. Actually, she would be assured if it was anyone else, but she definitely couldn't let anything happen to Feng Sizue. "Is there anyone else on the second floor?" No. The shopkeeper's hesitant tone made guard Fan slightly knit his brows. He held his sword in his right hand as he headed to the second floor. Luo Qingchen heard these footsteps, and her lips curled into a faint smile. She turned around and hid behind the screen. If guard Fan decided to search the room, she would teleport away. If he let down his guard, she wouldn't need to waste her exchange points. Gotcha! The door slowly opened. Guard Fan looked around the pitch-black room. His furrowed brows relaxed as he closed the door once more. Luo Qingshun couldn't help sighing. The guard by Feng Sizue's side really were careful. Master, I've looked through the rooms on the second floor. They're all high-class rooms. Which one do you want to sleep in? The last one. Feng Sizue's cold voice slowly sounded as he headed to the second floor. The shopkeeper standing on the side had a pale face as his body turned stiff, and he couldn't stop trembling. Luo Qingshun, who had been in the room, was stunned, and her breathing stopped. Was there a mistake? How could it be this perfect? As expected, she couldn't hide anything. It would be even more troublesome if she was found out. This was the same as lying. After lying once, she had to use another lie to cover it up. She gritted her teeth and hid under the bed from behind the screen. He. The host will be sleeping on the floor tonight. The system's voice sounded in her mind, making her heart even more stuffy. Kacha. The door was opened again, and there was a familiar scent in the air. Feng Sizue slowly walked in, and he paused. He slightly knit his brows, giving a strange, familiar feeling. Guard Fan. Master, what are your orders? Bring a bottle of wine. Don't come in. Yes. The fragrance of the fruit wine filled the air, and Luo Qingshun, hiding under the bed, swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She had an urge to charge out and lay her cards on the table. But she was afraid that Feng Sizue would choose to return to the palace because of her. After all, based on her understanding of the male lead, the probability of him doing this was as high as 90%. Luo Qingshun. There was a lazy voice that rang out with a touch of gentleness that filled the room. At this moment, her heart jumped to her throat. She took a deep breath and immediately held her breath. Feng. See, did she notice him? It can't be, right? Was he that amazing? Chapter 1333. At this moment, she only felt her fingertips tremble slightly, and she actually had the feeling of wanting to cry. What kind of words are the most moving? The answer was, when you couldn't hear it, he said it word for word to her, expressing a special kind of longing. I also miss you. She opened her mouth and suddenly felt that the floor wasn't that cold. Of course, it was probably because her heart was warm. The system knew how to love its host, so it didn't forget to give her a heat pad in the middle of the night. It felt very warm when it was pressed against her body. Sometimes her system was very good since it was similar to her, a person with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. System. But she felt that something was wrong when she was half asleep. The heat pad could resist the cold a bit, but it was a cold winter night. She shouldn't feel hot no matter what. Cuckoo. She couldn't help giving 2 coughs. When she opened her eyes, she found that there were flames around her. This is bad. Luo Qingshun quickly crawled out from under the bed. When she was planning on grabbing Feng Sizue, she found that there was no one there. Don't move. In the next second, a cold sword fell on her neck. His cold voice slowly sounded. Who are you? Kill your way in for me. Don't leave a single one. Luo Qingshun wanted to say something, but there was an angry roar that came from not far away. There were crackling sounds from the flames around them. Luo Qingshun knit her brows and turned to take his hand. Let's go first. Guangdang. The sword fell to the ground, and Feng Sizue grabbed her hand at the same time, tightly holding it as he said, How did you get here? Luo Qingshun was stunned. She had a veil over her face, and her voice was hoarse from the flames. But even like this, Feng Sizue was certain that it was her when she spoke, so he tightly held her hand without any hesitation. Forget it, let's go first. This time it was Feng Sizue who cut her off. Not only did he cut her off, he also repeated what she said. After all, he didn't have any emotions when he was in the flames, but now his hands couldn't help trembling in fear. Because she was by her side, the area under the left window was probably already surrounded by arsonists, while the area under the right window was a small path that led to Purple Phoenix Mountain. Feng Sizue half squatted down, and seeing the fire getting bigger, he anxiously said, Quickly come up. You want to carry me? Luo Qingshun chuckled and gently kissed him on the cheek. Then, without saying anything, she jumped down from the second floor. In the next second, he landed firmly on the ground. Come down quickly, I'll catch you. She waved at him with a smile in her eyes. She didn't need his protection. She was here to protect him, not to cause trouble for him. Feng Zue was surprised. Half the moonlight and half the flames, one in front and one behind, shined down on her white as snow face. At this moment, he was deeply mesmerized. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 90%. Pung! When Feng Zue fell to the ground, there was the sound of the arsonist not far away. Chapter 1334. It had to be said, this move of his really was bad. After all, even if he killed Feng Zue today, it was impossible for him to become the emperor. Regicide would never be justified in the name, nor would it go smoothly. It seemed like calling him back to Long Peace City from the barren north had ruined all his plans. He had no choice but to use this plan. It really was a bad plan. Luo Qingchun held Feng Zue's hand as they ran through the dense forest. She, who had no sense of direction, only had one thought. Run, run, run. The faster the better. Qingchun, what is it? Is someone here? Without knowing why, when she entered the Purple Phoenix Mountain, there was a feeling of fear in her heart. This feeling came from the depths of her heart, like it came from the fear of the previous host. She had dreamed of this place, but she was afraid of this place. Did that mean that something bad had happened to her here? Fool! Feng Zue pulled with his right hand and pulled her into his embrace, tightly holding her as he said, "When I knew it was you, this one's heart almost jumped out." His nervousness and fear all came from the danger she was in. However, he couldn't help but admit that when she appeared in front of him, his heart was jumping for joy. She pursed her lips and rubbed her face against his chest. "Who told you not to let me come? I could only use this plan. This one will be worried about you. I will also be worried about you. No matter what happened, they would always think about the other side." Perhaps this was the most beautiful appearance of love. Feng Zue heard this and looked at her messy hair and her face that was covered in smoke. He patted her head in pain and said, "I won't do it again in the future, all right?" She would never know how much he wanted her to be by his side all the time. "It's a promise," Luo Qingchun said. "But how do we go now?" This place wasn't a good place, whether it was her dream or the poisonous insects and beasts Feng Zue mentioned before. The Purple Phoenix Mountain at night must be more dangerous than she imagined. Feng Xingyu's group must have come prepared. Feng Zue knit his brows, but this one didn't just bring those people. This time, no one can save them. Why do I feel like no one can save us? Luo Qingchun's ears twitched slightly, and a strange voice suddenly sounded near and far. Feng Zue seemed to have heard it as he tightly held her hand and pulled her behind him. "Don't be afraid. This one will definitely protect you." "Ahem," she groaned. In that instant, her mind began to hurt violently, and an indescribable feeling of familiarity surged toward her. Feng Zue tightly knit his brows. Seeing her face that was as white as snow, he nervously said, "What is it? Don't scare me." She narrowed her eyes. As the strange sound came closer and closer, her breathing suddenly became sluggish. She suddenly looked at Feng Zue and said, "I seem to have been here before." "No, it's not like I definitely have been here before." There was no mistake. There was no mistake. This feeling of familiarity was too strong. She seemed to be about to remember it. The memories that had been sealed by the previous host. Feng Zue looked at her clear eyes, and there was a sparkle in his beautiful eyes. After a while, he slowly said, "Do you remember?" Chapter 1335. She was a bit surprised as a trace of doubt appeared in her eyes. Why would Feng Zue suddenly say this? Could it be that they had met before? "How do you know that I've forgotten some things?" She nodded slightly, her eyes filled with seriousness. She had a feeling that the answer had always been by her side, but she had forgotten it. This one, guessed, see? Luo Qingchun saw a bit of panic in his deep eyes and knew that this matter wasn't simple. But the strange sounds around them were coming closer, and she didn't have time to think about anything else. This sound seemed to be a snake? "We have to start a fire immediately." Feng Zue tightly knit his brows and held her hand even tighter. It takes time to start a fire in the wilderness. Luo Qingshun pursed her lips. Taking advantage of the dark night, she took out the 9-section moon whip from her storage space and said, "Who cares if it's a poisonous insect or beast? I'll kill one if one comes. I'll kill two if two come." In an instant, Luo Qingshun felt a surprised look from beside her. Wasn't she a bit too anxious? "You took out a whip." Feng Zizui's eyes fell onto the 9-section moon whip in her hand, and his eyes that were as deep as the sea were filled with confusion. He was certain that Luo Qingshun definitely didn't have this thing in her hand. Why did it seem so harmonious when it was in her hand? Luo Qingshun had a cute look in her eyes as she said, "I just picked it up on the road." Picked it up? Did she really think that he was sick, or did she think that he didn't have a brain? Even a 3-year-old child wouldn't believe this. Purple Phoenix Mountain, the night was dark and the wind was strong. In the pitch-black forest, he picked up a whip? Luo Qingshun gave a serious nod. She waved her right hand and took out a fire starter for him. "Take this fire starter and find a safe place to stand. Take care of yourself." She had asked for this fire starter from a system. After all, she couldn't just drill wood to make a fire, right? Luo Qingshun. Feng Zizue pulled his right hand and tightly hugged her. "Didn't you say the wrong thing? Shouldn't he be the one to protect her, and she should hide and take care of herself?" CSISI. Before Luo Qingshun could speak, a giant python came out of the grass in front. Luo Qingshun suddenly waved her right hand, and the 9-section moon whip tightly wrapped around the snake's head. In the darkness, Luo Qingshun looked into its eyes, and she couldn't help feeling terrified. It had a pair of blood-red eyes. Its teeth were very long, and the droplets of saliva that dripped down gave off a foul smell. He sees a of Luo, 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 oh Luo, Luo, oh, oh. Luo Qingshun of Luo, 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 oh of Luo at this moment. He could only use his body to protect Luo Qingshun behind him. Just like in the past, he had to protect her. Back then, the first place they met was here, Purple Phoenix Mountain. Luo Qingshun's right hand kept trembling, and there was a chill on her back. The python desperately struggled, and it was so strong that she almost couldn't control her 9-section moon whip. In the next second, it was as if the memories in his mind overlapped, and the fragments of the past gathered bit by bit. Chapter 1336. Could it be that this giant thing was the one recorded in the medical records, the one that bit Feng Zizue? No, it isn't. Feng Zizue tightly knit his brows as a sharp sparkle appeared in his deep eyes. He slowly said in a deep-as-water voice, "There is no blood-bone snake in this world." "How do you know?" "If there is, this one's poison can be cured." Luo Qingshun heard this and felt her body tremble. She suddenly thought of something recorded in the medical records. Red-eyed giant snake, poison of blood, life of bones, and medicine of gallbladder. After swallowing the gallbladder, one would be in a coma for several months. One would be immune to all poisons, and their blood would be the antidote. Luo Qingshun didn't care too much about this and didn't understand what it meant. But now that Feng Zizue mentioned it, it made her heart tremble. CSI Shio. The python shook its head and broke free of the 9-section moon whip. In an instant, it opened its bloody mouth and attacked in their direction. "Damn!" Luo Qingshun roared out. She pushed Feng Zizue behind her and jumped onto the python. If it was daytime, a trivial python wouldn't be a problem for her. But it was night, and they were in the dense forest, so they could only rely on the faint moonlight to find the python. For the python, the night was its absolute protection. Not only could it hide its position, it could also attack the enemy with the most accurate attacks. But even like this, she could only go all out. The 9-section moon whip firmly tied it up again, but this time it wasn't its head that was tied, but rather its mouth. When she looked up to find Feng Zizue, she found that her waist was suddenly tightened. Someone was firmly holding her, not letting her be thrown off by the python. Fire! Before she could even finish, Feng Zizue had already put the fire in the python's mouth. At this moment, the python let out a miserable cry. Probably due to the scorching pain, it twisted its body forcefully and threw the two people on its body into the air. Bang! The moment Luo Qingqian's back hit the tree stump, the python's only movable fang bit her shoulder and lifted her into the air. Ahem! She let out a muffled groan, her face pale. When she was planning on using this ability forever, Feng Sizue jumped out and tightly grabbed the python's fangs. The sharp fangs instantly pierced through his palm, and the white bones were clearly visible. Feng Sizue, Luo Qingqian called out in surprise. Only then did she see his face in the flames. His face was pale without a trace of blood. His lips were dark, and large drops of cold sweat dripped down from his forehead. Ah! With a long roar, he actually pulled out the fang while it was still alive. Pung! The two fell to the ground at the same time. Feng Sizue felt that he didn't have any strength as he fell into complete darkness. He suddenly felt that he was useless. Actually letting her bleed like this, he couldn't help but think of the first time he met her. She raised her eyebrows, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. She looked at him and said, "Little brother, when I grow up, I'll be your bride, okay?" On the purple Phoenix Mountain, smoke filled the air, a pure face, a tender promise. As soon as her voice fell, a giant bloodbone snake suddenly charged out. In order to protect her, he was covered in blood and poison. Chapter 1337. In the end, Luo Qingqian still defeated the python. She didn't know how she defeated it. She just knew that when it stopped breathing, she stumbled over to the unconscious Feng Sizue. Blood dripped down her arm, and she didn't feel any pain, just panic and fear. Feng Sizue. She was panting as she softly called his name. She felt her eyelids become heavy as she fell down beside him. She had a very long dream, but this dream was clear enough. She had met Feng Sizue on the Purple Phoenix Mountain back then. He had come here to hunt, and she had come with her father. After an accidental meeting, the two fell in love at first sight and promised themselves to each other. However, they had unfortunately met the bloodbone snake. The two were injured and were saved by a hidden expert of the Purple Phoenix Mountain. He killed the snake and took its gallbladder, but it could only be used to cure one person. Feng Sizue had that expert save her, and that expert was the Taoist who came to the palace a few years later to say those words to Feng Sizue. "Emperor, you know better than anyone where the antidote is. Red-eyed giant snake, poison of blood, life of bones, and medicine of gallbladder. After swallowing the gallbladder, one would be in a coma for several months. One would be immune to all poisons, and the blood would be the antidote." When she opened her eyes again, she was in a thatched hut. There was a strong herbal scent in the air and a faint smell of blood. The person in front of her was very unfamiliar, but there was a strange sense of familiarity. "You're awake?" Yin Xiu glanced at her and seemed to be able to tell what she was thinking from her eyes. He said directly, "Don't worry. I took the medicinal primer from you and temporarily protected his heart meridian. However, he won't be able to hold on for long." Luo Qingqian slightly knit her brows, and her clear as water eyes were calm. She took a deep breath and said, "Thank you." As soon as her voice fell, she got off the bed and slowly walked over to where Feng Sizue was lying. His face was still as pale as blood, but the color of his lips had returned. It wasn't the same dark color. "Why don't you ask what primer I took from you?" A faint guang flashed across Yin Xiu's cold eyes. He had to admit that he felt that the lady in front of him was very special. Originally, he thought that after such a dangerous situation, she would definitely become very flustered and even cry endlessly, begging him to save her. However, he did not expect her to be so calm. "Blood." She raised her right hand and put it over Feng Sizue's eyes. "My blood, right?" When everything was connected, when all the memories of the past overlapped. Then, the truth suddenly became clear. "You're really smart." Yin Xiu put down his hand and stopped decocting the medicine. He looked at her and said, "The venom of the giant python and the bloodbone snake are different. The Emperor's current situation is not optimistic. You know he's the Emperor?" Luo Qingqian's brows slightly knit, and a faint light flashed through her eyes. "Miss Luo probably can't remember." Yin Xiu narrowed his eyes. 5 years ago, when you met the last bloodbone snake in the world in the Purple Phoenix Mountain, I was the one who saved you. In an instant, Luo Qingchen's fingers trembled and there was a faint mist in her eyes. As expected, the dream didn't deviate at all. He had made the choice back then. He had chosen to save her. Thank you. Luo Qingchen closed her eyes, and her voice was a bit trembling. She could already feel the feeling of parting, and the one who made the choice this time was her. Chapter 1338. Could it be that you don't want to ask why he was poisoned and you weren't? Yin Xiu was very curious about this girl in front of him. She was very calm, like she already knew everything in her heart. But she shouldn't have remembered, right? Because the last blood-bone snake in this world, I was the one who ate its gallbladder. She paused as her long lashes fluttered. Her watery eyes looked deeply at Feng Xize lying on the bed as she muttered to herself, "So I'm immune to all poisons." Although this was just her guess, she felt that this guess wasn't far from the truth. The giant python had a strong poison, but when she was bitten, she felt the pain of her external wounds, but she didn't feel the pain of her internal injuries. She had a rough idea at that time. She was the one who ate the gallbladder of the blood-bone snake back then, so she was in a coma for several months. This also happened to coincide with the sentence recorded in the medical encyclopedia: red-eyed giant snake, poison of blood, life of bones, and medicine of gallbladder. Swallow the gallbladder and be in a coma for several months. Immune to all poisons, blood as the antidote. After hearing her words, Yin Xiu couldn't help but clap. He said with a faint smile, "This miss really is smart." Yin Xiu admires. Admires? I don't need your admiration. I just need to know one thing. Luo Qingchen took a deep breath. Her eyes were calm as she crossed her hands and slowly turned around. Oh, Yin Xiu looked up with a smile of deep meaning. So there are still things that Miss Luo can't guess in this world. She blinked her eyes, and her heart skipped a beat. She seemed to have guessed the outcome. Looking at your expression, you should already have the answer to the question you want to ask. His tone instantly became low, and the atmosphere instantly became heavy. She bit her lip and narrowed her eyes to ask, "How much blood do I need to cure?" "All of it." Before Luo Qingchen could finish, Yin Xiu had already given the answer. There was a rumble in her head, but her heart was very calm. After all, she knew what to do and already had the answer. "No matter what, you're still our savior." Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and softly said, "You've gave my blood to him, but you can't tell him that I'm already dead." Feng Xize had experienced so many painful things, he should be living well. "Miss Luo," Yin Xiu looked down with a bitter smile, "you think that he doesn't know that your blood can save his life?" There are some things that she didn't say. He didn't know. He didn't know. But when these words came out of Yin Xiu's mouth and entered her ears, she felt a lump in her throat and her eyes instantly reddened. Just what kind of obsession did Feng Xize have that he wouldn't tell her anything? Even when he was tortured and hurt of the Luo Qingchen, Miss Luo estet that you cans to the poison of ts that you s of cestite. T that. Yin Xiu's voice was very low. When he said this, there was a bit of emotion in his eyes. It was probably because he admired his obsession that he went to the palace once. But his thoughts didn't change at all. Chapter 1339. Yin Xiu gave her 2 hours to think carefully before making a decision. Actually, she had already made her decision. She said that she would protect him, so she had to do it. But in the end, she wasn't willing to leave him. He really did look good. His skin was as white as snow. His facial features were exquisite, and his thin lips looked so peaceful. It was like he was just sleeping and not on the verge of death. She lit a stick of sandalwood, and the fragrance filled the thatched hut. She sat in front of Feng Xize's bed and began talking to herself. "The system told me that the person who tied the bell should untie your poison. I didn't know what it meant back then, but when I read your medical records, you must have thought that I was a fool. Actually, I should apologize to you, because there are some things that you remember that I forgot. Last time you said that you would bring me to see the lanterns during the Mid-Autumn Festival. I might not be able to go. Shijin isn't bad, but I don't like you looking for her to play chess every day because my chess skills seem to have improved. Don't be soft on Feng Xingyu and Qianxiyu. Do your best to beat them to death, Don't give them a chance to breathe at all. It's best if you beat them to death. It'll be on me. Actually, I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life. But when I have someone to accompany me, I feel sad. I don't know if this is selfish, but I seem to be that kind of person. 2 hours passed very quickly. The sky gradually brightened, and when she opened the door, Yinxiu had already prepared everything and was waiting outside. Before changing the blood, Yinxiu seriously looked at her and asked, "How much of it are you saving him for yourself, and how much for the world?" "Not for myself, not for the world," she said. "I just want to protect him. I want him to live." "If he was a tyrant, were you planning on exchanging a life for a life?" Yinxiu said with a sigh. "Perhaps if he knew that you were dead, he might become a murderous emperor. Would you still want to save him?" "So what if he's a tyrant?" Luo Qingqian bit her lip and said with a cold smile, "He has done enough for the world. He had suffered for half of his life. Could it be that he had to die for the sake of the world?" Regardless of whether he eventually became a wise ruler or a tyrant, this was fate. After all, everyone had their own destiny. Yinxiu didn't reply for a long time. He only sighed and took out a thin dagger. "It won't hurt, and it won't take long." He narrowed his eyes and looked at her with a touch of pity. "It'll be over soon." She closed her eyes and nodded. She murmured, "I'm not afraid of death. I'm just afraid that he'll be too lonely." When the cold dagger cut through her still beating pulse, she only felt her heart become calmer. It was as if she was completing a mission. This was something she had to do. She didn't know what method Yinxiu used to exchange blood for her and Feng Xize. She just knew that he didn't lie to her. Time passed quickly, and it didn't hurt at all. Many images flashed through his mind, and the final image was the sketch in the imperial study. The clothes the woman in the painting was wearing were the same ones she wore to the Purple Phoenix Mountain 5 years ago. The person in the painting was her. After a while, she felt like her body was floating. In a daze, there was a strong hand that grabbed her hand with a bit of trembling and endless sadness. After that, she didn't feel anything else. What was gratifying was that there was a notification from the system in her mind. Chapter 1340. When Feng Xize woke up, he was already in the royal palace. The imperial doctor took his pulse and said with a look of joy, "The poison in the emperor's body has been cured. It really is the golden age of the Feng dynasty." He looked up, and after regaining consciousness, he only said a single word: "Scram." In the next year, he spent all his manpower to go to the Purple Phoenix Mountain to find Yinxiu. But no matter how he looked, he couldn't find him. Whether it was Yinxiu or her corpse, he couldn't find the same. In this year, he became even more violent. He didn't directly kill Feng Xingyu. Rather, he cut off his hands and feet and locked him in a water prison. He didn't let him die, but he definitely didn't let him live like a normal person. As for Qian Siyu, he directly gave her a 1,000-pound foot. 1,000 maids stepped on her body until the child in her stomach came out, but they weren't willing to let her go. Qian Siyu was considered good. At least she finally breathed her last after being tortured for 3 days and 3 nights. As for the people who surrounded them at the inn that night, they were all executed and their entire families were executed. For the court and the harem, this was the darkest year since Feng Xize took the throne. He became moody and obsessed with witches. Every witch that came to Long Peace City was caught in the royal palace and used to search for her whereabouts. But every time he received news, he only felt disappointed. He felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. When the Mid-Autumn Festival came, he wore casual clothes and left the palace alone for Long Peace City, not bringing a single guard with him. There was a bright moon in the sky, and Long Peace City was filled with lanterns. Children ran through the streets with candied haws, playing with each other. His deep eyes trembled, and for the first time in 3 months, they weren't that sharp. He didn't know how he spent these 3 months. He only knew that he almost never closed his eyes, and even when he closed his face, his mind was filled with nightmares. Terrifying nightmares. He said that he would bring her to the Mid-Autumn Festival, but he was the only one left. "Take a look, take a look." There were shouts from the stage in front of him. An old man hit the gong and said, "Today, the Mu family's eldest daughter Mu Ying is taking the stage to find a husband." As long as you could defeat my daughter on the stage, you will be this Mu's son-in-law. Feng Xize didn't want to stop, but he stopped because of the words around him. I've heard that Mu Yingying is very beautiful and has extraordinary martial arts. Many young masters in Long Peace City. Isn't that right? Old Mu really is lucky to have given birth to such a beautiful girl. No, no, no. You only see Mu Yingying's excellence. You don't see her sister. Oh, her sister seems to be an idiot? That's right. I heard that she's also very good-looking, but she's so silly. This time, Elder Mu said that whoever marries Mu Yingying must marry her sister at the same time. It seems like something Mu Tian Tian. Right. There was a flash of red silk on the stage, and the slender figures of the two girls of the Mu family appeared. Feng Xize, standing under the stage, almost forgot to breathe as a sparkle appeared in his deep eyes. He didn't even think about Feng Yingying. Instead, he focused all of his attention on Feng Tian Tian. She was dressed in a hazy robe that was embroidered with flowers and satin. Her eyes were clear and bright, and there was a sweet smile on her lips. Chapter 1341. No, impossible. She was this smart. As long as there was a hint, she could guess everything. He hadn't seen her in a year. How could she become a fool? Wang Dali of the noodle shop. Request to compete. Before he could come back to his senses, one of them had already rushed up to him. He was very rough, and his face was covered in stubble, so he should have some skills. Mu Yingying looked up with a look of disdain. She was such a proud person, talented and beautiful, proficient in the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. If it wasn't for her fool little sister, she wouldn't have needed to lower herself to do this kind of thing. Come! She gave a cold snort as a trace of disdain flashed in her eyes. Miss Mu, thank you for letting me win. Wang Dali revealed a wretched smile as he charged at Mu Yingying. Probably because she used too much strength, Mu Yingying leaped with her qigong and kicked him off the stage. Ha 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 ha. The people under the stage broke out in laughter as they whispered to each other. This really is a toad wanting to eat swan meat. Isn't that so? Why don't you look in the mirror? That's to say, can the beautiful Miss Mu like him? Coo. Old Mu was a bit awkward as he cleared his throat. It's a pity that this young Master Wang couldn't beat my daughter. I wonder if there are any other warriors who want to come to the stage? I Shen Chao. I Chiu Li Shan. I Wan Qian. I Wu De Pom. People kept being defeated and people kept going up, but no one could beat Mu Yingying. From beginning to end, Feng Xizue's eyes never left Mu Tian Tian in her begonia brocade dress. She sat on the side with a sweet smile on her lips from beginning to end. It was like everything in this world was unrelated to her. She was as clean as a basin of water. As more and more people were defeated, old Mu's face became even uglier. Feng Xizue tightly clenched his fists and narrowed his deep eyes as he jumped onto the stage. He didn't say anything and didn't look at Mu Yingying as he walked towards Mu Tian Tian. Mu Yingying's eyebrows froze, and her heartbeat unconsciously sped up. The man in front of her had a majestic figure and a dignified appearance. His eyes were like cold stars, and people couldn't help but stare at him. He seemed to be standing there casually, but he had a noble air about him. He was like a king who had descended upon the world, proudly looking down on the tens of thousands of miles of territory and its millions of people. This young master, Mu Yingying wanted to say something, but she found that Feng Xizue was squatting down in front of Mu Tian Tian. What is your name? Tian Tian. Tian Tian. Tian Tian. As she spoke, she laughed and pointed in Mu Yingying's direction. Elder sister is over there. Lala, you're going to look for me to fight. Tian Tian doesn't know how to fight. Everyone was stunned. They actually didn't know why this handsome young man would actually speak with an idiot after he ascended the arena. What they didn't know was that this young man, who seemed to have walked out of a painting, was acting so strangely because of his face. The face that looked exactly like her, a face that he would never forget. At the same time, Mount Yuqing. Chapter 1342. On the stage, Mu Yingying was a bit embarrassed. After all, the person in front of her was so dazzling and elegant. But he didn't even look at her and was talking to her dumb little sister. She stared blankly at the pair of bottomless eyes that lit up for a moment before gradually dimming down. "You're very beautiful." His heart skipped a beat and his eyes were filled with despair, but he wasn't stingy with his praise. This face really was very, very beautiful, but he was very clear that she wasn't her. But even so, even if it was for this face, he still stubbornly wanted to keep it, and keep it by his side. This young master. Old Mu was a bit embarrassed since this buy one, get one free competition wasn't buying a fool and giving a beauty away. Guangdang. He suddenly waved his right hand, and the token in his hand drew a beautiful arc in the air before it was stuck in a pillar on the side of the stage. Old Mu was stunned as everyone's eyes fell onto Feng Sizue. The aura of a king emanating from his body made everyone present hold their breaths. A person wearing the uniform of a brocade guard happened to pass by, and when he saw the token, he immediately kneeled down. "This servant greets the emperor." Everyone present felt a chill run down their spines. After a while, they looked at each other and knelt down one after another. Feng Sizue, standing on the stage, didn't look away at all. His bottomless eyes were deeply looking at this girl who only knew how to giggle as he said, "Are you willing to come back to the palace with this one? Where is that? He. Is it fun? Are there many good things to eat?" Mu Tian looked up as her smile widened. "You can have whatever you want." His eyes narrowed as he made the ultimate promise in this world. You really are." Old Mu was in disbelief, but when a large group of guards came over to the stage, he believed this was a fact that was so absurd. The emperor was actually bringing his second daughter, the fool daughter that he thought couldn't be married off, back to the palace? All right, then I want to go. He. Her eyebrows relaxed slightly, and her smile was so brilliant. In the past, such a smile had rarely appeared on his face. That kind of carefree smile made people's hearts tremble. But little did she know that in the next second, her expression became bitter and her tears flowed as she said, I don't want to leave sister. I want to be together with sister." Feng Sizue narrowed his beautiful eyes. He looked at Mu Ying in a daze on the side before looking back at Mu Tian. "This one said that you can get whatever you want." Are you really the current emperor?" Mu Ying raised her phoenix eyes as a blush appeared on her fair cheeks. At this moment, she had completely changed her appearance. She was completely different from her who had slaughtered everyone in the arena just now. She softly muttered, "Ying greets the emperor. No need to be so courteous." Feng Sizue slowly stood up and softly looked at her. "Come back to the palace with this one tonight with Tian." Since the person with that face wanted to be together with her sister, it was not even an easy thing for him to do. If she wanted it, he could give it all to her. As long as this face existed, no matter who it was, he could give it all to them without any conditions. Chapter 1343. Mu Ying heard this, and her heart skipped a beat, feeling a bit uncomfortable. After all, Mu Tian was her accessory, but she suddenly felt like her identity had been switched. This feeling made her feel very uncomfortable. At midnight, Mu Ying and Mu Tian were arranged to stay in the Cherry Blossom Palace, a palace far away from the splendid hall. Feng Sizue didn't immediately head over. Rather, he took a few jars and headed to the Willful Hall. Today was the death anniversary of the Ningyuan General Zhongzhe. A year had passed without him knowing it. Last year at this time, although she was a little cold, she could always inadvertently beat him black and blue all over. But at least, she was still by his side. When he was alone, he often wondered why he had to live. She had died for him. Shouldn't he die as well? Yes, he should die. But that was before he found her corpse. Yanxiu was gone, and her corpse was also gone. She wanted him to live with just 2 lines of words. Why was it so laughable? He knew better than anyone that as long as he found her corpse, he would go with her without another word. At least let him take a look at her. It was her, the real her, not just a puppet substitute. Don't drink anymore. Shijin knit her brows, as she couldn't help taking the wine jug. But after that, there was only darkness and despair left in his deep eyes. He looked down, and after a while, he muttered in a choked up and begging voice, "Luo Qingshun, why didn't you take me to hell?" "Emperor, Jean saw him like this and couldn't control her emotions as tears fell down. She tightly bit her lip as she looked at Feng Xizi. Perhaps Qin Chun went to heaven? She wouldn't want to see the emperor treat her like this. There was a kind of pain in the world. It wasn't just love that couldn't be said. It was also that the person sitting in front of you never thought you loved them. Instead, they showed their most vulnerable side to you for another girl. No, he roared out. She said that we would go to hell together, she said. She wouldn't leave me. Jean was probably the only person in this world who could see his weak appearance. At the same time, in the Cherry Blossom Palace, there was a dazzling array of silks and satins, gold and silver jewelry, and floral creams. Every single one of them was extremely valuable. Eunuch Li took a full hour to announce the reward, and the reward was only given to one person, Mu Tiantian. For some reason, Mu Yingying, who was sitting on the chair, didn't feel the slightest bit of joy when she saw the dazzling array of rewards. Instead, a hint of anger flashed through her heart. This feeling of unwillingness filled the depths of her heart. It was like a sharp sword that ruthlessly pierced through her years of pride. No matter what, she would never have thought that such an outstanding person like her would actually become an accessory to her foolish younger sister. She had become a dispensable person. But even so, on the stage, the instant Feng Shizue's deep eyes landed on her body. As proud as she was, she could feel her heart skip a beat. There was an indescribable sense of nervousness. If this was love at first sight, then it wouldn't be an exaggeration. Therefore, even if she knew that Feng Xize wanted her to enter the palace because of her little sister's words, she didn't proudly reject him.